Okay, well, I probably should have turned around and looked at Rumble. Something went wrong. Sunday, a little history. Well, there it is. Huh. Well, it was on Rumble for 8:59. So now maybe we're back on Rumble again. There's the birds. I got to go and reset this by hitting another one and then coming back. All right, here we go now. All right, well, I'm on Rumble now, so it's broadcasting, and then let me check Facebook. 206 people, and we've run into some technical difficulties because we're a small broadcasting company right now. And the company includes my wife, who's got to go to work today, huh? Look at this here. I got my buttons. I got some new buttons up there. Pretty cool. So while we're waiting on this, let's go to this here. So now I'm going to go to the watch history. And like I said, I have this British Dad that I was also watching. And talk about irreverence. You are going to hear things raw the way you'd hear it if you were out there on the battlefield with a bunch of these guys or some of the crews that I've been in when we're on the job. So this is the British Dad Reacts. Was this the one I wanted to do? World War III. Okay. That was one. But as I said, Bazooka Joe, I'm going to touch on this real quick because my wife and I have so many. We have so many that we watched now. Here it is. This is where this guy.
I found the real life version, and it's even cooler than the movie.
Yeah, it is.
Today we're talking about Charles Carpenter. The Germans referred to him as the Mad Major, while his men knew him as Bazooka Charlie. A 29-year-old history teacher from Moline, Illinois, who would join the United States Army Air Corps after Pearl Harbor was attacked and his younger brother, who was a fighter pilot in the Philippines, was captured by the Japanese. Through a series of events,
history teacher, that's good for his deal, what he's doing. But this guy's amazing.
he would become one of the United States Army's first liaison pilots, a new experimental program where these men were tasked with flying the L-4 Grasshopper, basically a glorified crop duster with fabric wings and what amounts to a lawnmower blade sticking out of the front. They would fly out over the battlefield and use their altitude to spot enemy positions and call in accurate artillery fire. While this job was extremely valuable, dangerous, and did have a humongous impact on the battlefield, it didn't have the direct impact that Charles Carpenter wanted. So Carpenter decided he was going to mount 6 bazookas on the wings of his crop duster and begin flying combat sorties, quite literally dive-bombing German tanks. He would later perfect this technique and use it to sway the entire Battle of Arikor, which is the largest tank battle on the Western Front in all of World War II. And we're going to get into everything right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by World of Warship Legends, the first and probably only video game I'm ever going to be in. Good game, everyone. That was a great battle. Now, previously, I was only available on PC, but to celebrate the Navy's 250th birthday, I am now available on consoles, and you're going to unlock me, the battleship, the USS Texas with an American flag paint job, and a bunch of other freebies. And that deal is available for absolutely everybody, even if you already play, from now until November 28th, 2025. And if you're new to the game, you're going to get a bunch of extra freebies on top of that. The game is free, it's pretty easy to play, and it's one of the only games that I actually do play. You get to captain your own ship in naval warfare, being historically accurate ships like the USS Texas, the USS Iowa, or the USS Enterprise. And it's not all just American ships. You could be other historic ships from different nations. You could be the Japanese Yamato. You could be the German Bismarck. I mean, I don't know why you would. They're both at the bottom of the ocean right now, which seems like a bad strategy if you want to win, but whatever, you do you. And it's not just influencers like me that you can unlock to be the captains of your ship.
Okay, so you got to check him out. Go to his channel.
And then on the weekends, he would go to the next town over to go to the dance hall to try to find a wife, a big dance hall called the Coliseum. One night at the Coliseum.
Yeah, what it is he meets this Filipino girl.
And while that might be a dream job to most people, being able to stay
ends up having a family, okay? Or was that Pappy Gunn?
Jeez, both for football and track. While he's there, he joins the Civilian Training Corps, which is kind of like an old version of ROTC, where you get to become a military officer when you do classes during college. Basically, he has to go off to 2 weeks of training every summer, all 4 years of college, and then once he graduates from college and finishes the program, he's offered a spot as a second lieutenant in the Army Reserves as a pilot. So that's what he does. He goes off to college, studies history, studies philosophy, decides he wants to be a history teacher. He wants to be able to go into a classroom full of kids and find the kids that are like him and be their strong male role model that he never had. And that's what he does for years. And when he's not teaching history, he's a flight instructor. But being the history guy, he can also kind of see the future, because history is the best predictor of the future, and he sees all the tensions and everything rising in Europe. And in his personal journal in the 1930s, he would write, and I quote,
"Where's my fruit?" That's not what he wrote.
"Life is far crueler than death, and nations are feverishly preparing to slaughter again." So he knew that World War II was coming probably a lot sooner than most other people did, but he's one man. He's a history teacher in Moline, Illinois. What can he do? So he just keeps living his life. He keeps teaching history in the day, keeps teaching pilots at night, and then on the weekends, he would go to the next town over to go to the dance hall to try to find a wife, a big dance hall called the Coliseum. One night at the Coliseum, he picks a lovely young lady out of the crowd. Elda, also known as Bunny, asked her to dance. They dance all night. They have a great time. She's awestruck that this perfect 10 of a man, he's got a job, he's athletic, he's handsome, is hitting on her. And at the end of the night, he asks her, "Hey, could I take you out on a real date?" And she wasn't very confident, and she panics, and she's like, I have a date with my girlfriend scheduled for that night already. So Charles Carpenter's like, "Oh, okay, I guess," and that was the end of it. Bunny spends the next weeks and months just kicking herself in her own ass for shooting down this perfect 10 of a man, and then eventually, after a couple of months, they run into each other at the Coliseum again. They dance all night, have a great time, and Charles Carpenter shoots his shot again. They go out on a date, and 3 months later, they were married. According to Bunny, and I quote, "We were so in love, we couldn't eat." Fast forward, Charles Carpenter is living the American dream. Despite his rough childhood, he's college educated, he's a high school history teacher, living his dream job, he's happily married, his wife is pregnant with their first child, and then in 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. And at essentially the same time, they also attack the Philippines, where his brother, the fighter pilot, is currently stationed, and they destroy his brother's plane in the opening attack. His brother's now a POW, all of his former students are getting drafted and going off to war, and he could probably get away from the draft. Being at home as a teacher is an important job. He could probably get an exemption, but that's not the man that Charles Carpenter is, so he volunteers to go off and joins the military too at 29 years old. Now, because Carpenter's already college educated, he's already an Army officer, he's already a flight instructor, the Army determines they're not going to send him off into combat. They're going to send him to Miami, where he's going to be an instructor and teach other people how to be officers and how to fly planes. And while that might be a dream job to most people, being able to stay stateside, safe, healthy, happy, it's not really what Carpenter wanted, but that's what the Army told him to do, so he's going to do it to the best of his ability. So in early 1942, he gets in his car in Illinois and drives all the way to Miami, and the road trip there is absolutely crazy. Pearl Harbor just happened, and they're already rationing gasoline, they're rationing rubber for tires, they're rationing absolutely everything. At one point, Charles picks up a hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker explains to him that he's a merchant marine and his ship had been sunk by a German U-boat, and he's trying to make his way home to his parents because his parents parents think that he's dead. And the entire thing is just surreal to him because he's read and studied so much history, and he realizes during this road trip that he's now living through history. So he gets to Miami. Is 15 degrees removed. Some guy told another guy that apparently this happened. But when Charles Carpenter hears that it happened, he's like, I'm fucking doing it. So he goes to his chain of command, asks permission, is like, hey, I heard this was possible. I want to give it a try. His chain of command, being cool as shit, is like, look, I'm not saying you're allowed to do that. I'm also not saying that if you did, I'm going to stop you, which he saying you're allowed to do that. I'm also not saying that if you did, I'm going to stop you, which he takes as a green light, and he doesn't. Okay, bear in mind, this is a rumor. He heard from a guy who heard from a guy that this is theoretically possible, and he's going to go out there and actually figure out how to do it. There's no YouTube tutorial, there's no how-to, there's no pictures of how it was done. He's just going to go out there and figure out how to mount a bazooka onto his plane. Which, to be fair, doesn't sound like it would be that complicated until you actually start to think about the fact that this is borderline approaching rocket science, right? I mean, you can't just be strapping big, heavy metal tubes onto the wings of aircrafts and expect it to not interfere with, I don't know, aerodynamics, weight distribution, all the shit that goes into, I don't know, keeping a plane in the fucking sky.
That's simply not possible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
And if you don't believe me, go make a paper airplane, throw it across the room, watch it go, and then pick it up, strap some weights to each wing, and throw it again and see how different it flies.
Oh man, it slipped out of my hand. What a whiff.
Regardless, he's a smart guy. He figures it out. You can't literally mount the bazooka on the wing because they're fabric wings, so he mounts it on the wing strut, and then he mounts it so that the actual weight of the bazooka with the shell is behind the rear tires and behind the pilot, because the center of gravity on these Piper Cub planes is actually behind the pilot already, so he's using his own body weight to counteract the weight of these bazookas.
Yes, science.
So he ends up mounting one bazooka on each side of the plane, does a test. It was not going to penetrate the front or side armor of a German Panther or a German Tiger tank. But what most people didn't realize at the time, he's not shooting at a German Tiger tank from the front or the side. He's shooting at it from the top, like an early version of a Javelin missile, literally hitting the tank at its weakest possible point, because no engineer could have ever foreseen, what if somebody was flying above you with a fucking bazooka? At no point in the German engineering process did any of the engineers say, yeah, but what if a crazy history teacher from Illinois in a crop duster covered in bazookas develops the pro gamer move?
Unbelievable. That is Bazooka Charlie. Now,
whether they're willing to admit it or not, every single dad has thought about in his head the things that he would do to save his kids, and he also likes to think that somehow, if the situation required it, he would rise to the occasion and become a superhero to do so. Well, this is a story about a man that actually did that. Today we're talking about Paul Irvin Gunn, aka Pappy. General Kenny, the man in charge of the entire United States Army Air Force after his time in service, after having hundreds of thousands of men serve underneath him, wrote a book about two of them. One of them is about Dick Bong, America's ace of aces, the greatest fighter pilot in American history, and the other is about Pappy, a 42-year-old retired Navy carrier pilot that was working as a civilian pilot in Manila in the Philippines when the Japanese attacked. When things started going south in the Philippines, General MacArthur's staff told Pappy that they needed him to fly a bunch of very important VIPs from the Philippines all the way to Australia to safety. They told him that Manila was going to be defended and he would have time to take the VIPs to Australia, come back, pick up his family, and evacuate them as well.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
They lied. By the time Pappy had reached Australia, he was informed that MacArthur had declared Manila an open city and it had fallen into the hands of the Japanese with zero resistance. His family was then taken and placed in an internment camp at Santo Tomas. Pappy then goes on a one-man rampage to get his family back, launching multiple rescue attempts, crash landing his plane multiple times before he comes to the conclusion he's not going to be able to do this by himself. The only way he's going to be able to get his family back is by helping America win the war. In order to do that, he steals an entire fleet of B-25 medium bombers from the Danish government, takes them back to his base, heavily modifies them by sticking 850 caliber machine guns in the nose, a feat that engineers said was impossible, creating the first predecessor for the A-10 Warthog. He then proceeds to train a bunch of other pilots how to fly these things and takes them out on missions where they wreak havoc on enemy ground troops in the Pacific. And after they've killed so many enemy soldiers that they need reinforcements and they're sending in a massive reinforcement convoy with supplies and an entire infantry division, Pappy heavily modifies the B-25s again to perfect a tactic known as skip bombing and utilizes them to destroy the entire reinforcement convoy before it ever reaches the coast, which directly leads to the liberation of the Philippines. General Kenny said that Pappy Gunn was more important to the war effort than any Japanese general ever could have been. So if this is true, how have you never heard of this guy? It's because General Kenny also made it illegal for journalists to write stories about him at the time because they didn't want the Japanese finding out who this guy was and how much trouble he was causing, because then they would take it out on his family in the internment camp. But since that's no longer a concern, we can talk about it right after word from our sponsor.
Delete me.
You're not yeah, no, we can do myself. Great. You want to read the camera and go punch down because I'm like right?
Yeah, and I totally
Our story
think
begins October
that's
18th,
important to
1899 in
have,
Quitman,
so
Arkansas, when a young
play that
Paul
again
Irvin
on
Gunn is
slow.
born. He is one of 9 kids. He has 5 older sisters, and he is the oldest son. At the age of 7, his dad passes away. His 5 older sisters have already married and moved out of the house, and he is at this point the oldest child. He is now the man of the house at 7 years old. From this point on, he becomes a workaholic for the rest of his life. If he's not helping his mom on the farm, he's going out, he's shining shoes in town, and then eventually he gets a job working for a mechanic in town, working on cars, where he becomes a brilliant mechanic at a very young age.
Hi, my name is Giuseppe, and I'm a 9-year-old car enthusiast.
So brilliant that by the time he's a teenager, he's actually able to take a bunch of old wrecked cars in the salvage yard behind the mechanic shop and cobble them together to make a car that he can drive for himself. And not only does this car drive, it's the fastest car anybody's ever seen. He loves it. He loves working on cars. He likes going fast. He wants to be a race car driver. And then one day he sees a plane which goes even faster than a race car. So he decides he wants to be a pilot. And the best place to do that is in the United States Navy. But he can't. He can't leave his mom. Mom needs him to help make money so that she can keep the house and the family afloat. So he can't leave her high and dry unless he can figure out a way to make a shit ton of money and leave it with mom. Then he could go off and achieve his dream. The only problem with that is the only honest legal way to make money is to work at the mill in town, and that only pays 75 cents a day. That's going to take him years to save up enough money. That's not going to work, so he decides to do it the illegal, dishonest way. He's 16 years old, he can drive his ass off, and he's got the fastest car in town, so he becomes a bootlegger for the mafia running alcohol during Prohibition.
Well, ain't y'all cute? That's my baby.
He gets paid $30 for a single run. He's making $30 in a night when most other grown men are making 75 cents a day. He winds up saving up hundreds and hundreds of dollars for his mom. After he's finally saved up what he thinks is going to be enough money, he's going to go out on one last mission. He's going to go out on one last run, and on that run, the police set up a trap and they catch him on a bridge. He gets arrested. This is going on during World War I. The draft is in place, at which point he's taken to court and he is given the options, go to the military or go to jail. And he's like, well, this is perfect. I was planning on going to the military anyways. So he goes.
Nice.
You planned. It worked. Every step of the way.
Ships off for basic training to the Navy, does great, everything's going awesome, and then it dawns on him, you have to be an officer to be a pilot. He's enlisted. There's no way they're going to let some guy who's here to avoid jail go off and become an officer, so his dreams of becoming a pilot aren't looking that great, at which point he decides he's going to be the next closest thing he can be just to be near the planes and to do something he enjoys. He's going to become an aviation mechanic. And that's what he does for the next 6 years. He's an aviation mechanic, and he is ungodly good at it. Like, the dude is just naturally talented, mechanically inclined. He can look at something and just know how it works. And while he's doing that, he's sending a bunch of his money back home, and the only money he's spending on himself is he's going out on his own personal time and paying civilian pilots to train him how to fly planes. During this period of time, he also meets his wife, Clara, and they end up getting married. And at some point along the line, Pappy, is like, you know what? You look more like a Polly to me. He literally names his wife after himself, which is the second pilot I've covered on this channel that just randomly renamed their wives. I don't know what's going on with that, but yeah, it happened. So now he's married to Polly.
Hello, horse. I shall call you Burger.
Now, right around the time his first 6-year enlistment's about to be up, there's this big push through Congress to be able to have enlisted guys go and be pilots. And for this, Pappy's a shoo-in. He already knows how to fly planes because he's been paying civilians to teach him, and he knows the inner workings of every single plane that the U.S. Navy has. Because of this, they tell him that if he re-ups for another 6 years, they'll give him one of these pilot slots and he can go off to flight school, so he takes it. Graduates flight school, no problem, goes off, gets attached to VF-1, one of America's first ever fighter squadrons known as the Top Hatters. This is one of, if not the best fighter squadrons America has at the time, and they are the ones that go through and basically pioneer combat aviation between World War I and World War II. These are the guys that perfected carrier landings, aircraft carrier warfare. Pappy was there for all of it. Towards the end of his time at VF-1, he's also selected as one of the pilots that goes out and searches for Amelia Earhart after she was lost. He then spends the last couple of years of his 20-year career as a flight instructor before retiring. Oh, also, during his 20-year military career, in the back half of it, he started having trouble having a bunch of cavities, and he just kept going back to the dentist to get his mouth drilled in and get these cavities filled. And eventually it was taking up too much of his time. It was taking up too much time away from the flight line, and he didn't like it. So he just goes to the Navy dentist and is like, hey, just pull all my teeth out and give me dentures. And the Navy dentist is like, absolutely not. And Pappy Gunn is like, fine. So he goes into the civilian market and has a civilian dentist pull out all of his teeth and give him dentures. Like I said, the dude is a workaholic. So Pappy retires from the Navy. Pappy and Polly move the family out to the Philippines in Manila. They've got 2 sons and 2 daughters, and they're living out in the Philippines. And Pappy is a founding member of Philippine Airlines. They've got a couple of Beech 18 planes, and they're flying people all over the area. This goes on for a couple of years. Pappy's retired. He's still flying planes. He's got his dream job. He's got his wife. He's got his kids. Because of the exchange rate between American currency and Filipino currency, they're basically very wealthy. They have servants working in the house. Things are great. He's retired. He's done. He's achieved everything. He's successful. And then World War II starts. America's not involved yet, but Pappy can see the writing on the wall. There's only so many airstrips in the Philippines, and Pappy's airline, Philippine Airlines, shares the same airstrips as the United States Air Force, and he can see that the United States Air Force is building up more planes and more troops and bringing in more supplies. They're getting ready for something, and Pappy knows that because he spent 20 years in the Navy. So he goes to his wife Polly and is like, hey, you and the kids need to go back to America. You need to go to Florida. If something happens here, we're not going to be able to hold up. Like, yeah, they're building up troops, but it's not going to be enough if the Japanese decide to attack. You need to get sent back home. Polly, his wife, absolutely refuses. She's not leaving. Okay, fine. Now, by this point, Pappy's been in the Philippines for years. Everybody in the aviation community knows who he is. He's the best pilot around. If you need a pilot to get you somewhere somewhere nobody else feels comfortable getting you, or you need to fly through a storm, Pappy's the guy you go to. And on December 7th, 1941 is one of these cases. Pappy's plane gets chartered to fly through a storm. Pappy does it, flies through the storm, no problem, lands. When he lands, he blows out a tire on his landing equipment. He's now stranded on this smaller island until he can get his tire fixed. Not a big deal. Until he hears all the radio transmissions that the Japanese have just attacked Pearl Harbor. Oh shit, he needs to get home right now. So he gets on a boat, and then he gets on a train, and then he gets on a bus. He travels for an entire day and eventually makes it home, hasn't slept in 2 days, walks through the door, absolutely furious. The family's freaking out. His kids are like between the ages of 8 and 14. He's pissed off. He's telling Polly, damn it, you should have listened to me. Now it's going to be too late to get you out. I need you to leave. Now the Japanese are coming here to attack us next, and I'm not going to be able to get you out. But he's going to have to, so he leaves. He goes back to the airfield, Nichols Field, and he goes to where his hangar is with all of his airplanes, and he separates his planes out, sticking them in the spots that are least likely to get attacked by the Japanese, not if, but when they launch an air raid, because it's probably going to be tonight. He needs to save his planes so that he's going to be able to save his family. And at this point, Pappy's like the only one that's just ratcheted up to 11. Like everybody else is like freaked out and sad. Pappy is like the one dude around that knows that the Japanese are on their way. He served 20 years in the Navy. He knows the only reason the Japanese would attack Pearl Harbor and cripple the American Navy was so that they could attack everywhere else in the Pacific theater with impunity, and that's exactly what they're going to do. On top of that, he also knows the atrocities that the Japanese military committed at Nanking and in China, killing and murdering innocent civilians and torturing them for fun. So he's freaking out, and he's trying to figure out how to get his family off of this island. And while this is going on, he finds out that, oh, I was correct, because the Japanese just attacked Clark Airfield, where all of the American heavy bombers are for the entire area, which was the biggest thing defending the Philippines. And the Japanese destroyed almost all of the American bomber fleet because MacArthur, even though he had time and he had warning from Pearl Harbor that the Japanese were coming, decided, now we'll just leave the bombers on the ground so the enemy can go by and drop bombs on top of fucking not moving targets on the runway. Perfect.
That shit is crazy. I really don't like that guy.
So he finishes up hiding his Beach 18s the best that he can, goes back home, has the family cover all the windows with tarps and blankets to restrict any light movement. He's freaking out because his house is only a mile away from Nichols Airfield, and from the sky, you can't tell that it's not part of the military base. It's a good chance his house is going to get hit if the Japanese attack. He has the entire family sleep in the living room. He has a game plan. He's like, okay, one of us has to be up at all times. If we hear enemy planes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out into the front yard. Our yard has this like brick wall perimeter around it. You're going to lay belly down next to that brick wall outside of the house with your mouth open the entire time. Daughter, like, why are we keeping our mouth open? So the shockwave from a bomb doesn't blow your eardrums out. At this point, the family's shitting their pants. They realize how serious things are getting, and everybody's panicked. Pappy, who already has...
I honestly didn't think about that. Okay, so we're going to jump ahead. This guy's great. I hate that. I should listen to him all the way through one day, but we're going to jump ahead. What happens is yeah.
By this point, he's got a functioning prototype. He's going up on combat missions in a plane that's not tested, managing to keep this thing in the air while it's so heavy in the nose. And the first time he fires it in combat, it almost knocks the plane out of the sky and rips the guns right out of the nose cone, ripping the entire thing off. Luckily, he manages to keep it in the air, brings it back. It's okay, I got the useful data. He reinforces the nose cone. He figures out how to mount the 50 calibers directly to the airframe. He's making this work. Also, around this time, he acquires a pet lizard that he names Sam. Apparently, it's just some big-ass lizard that sits on his shoulder all day and hisses at people when they walk by while he's working. So everybody's just kind of like the old crazy dude Pappy has just, he's lost his fucking mind. He continues working on the plane. He continues going up on these test runs. Sam the lizard is flying shotgun on his shoulder the entire time.
Unbelievable, huh?
Eventually, he thinks he's got it. He thinks he's perfected the design. He has made this plane work somehow, and he wants to go test it. The problem is, there's no combat missions for the day, so he takes off anyways, and he's just flying around looking for something to shoot. He flies over a farm, and he sees a cow. Pappy and Sam, it was probably Sam's idea, but Pappy ends up strafing this cow, and allegedly, the 50 caliber machine gun fire from 8 50 cals picked the cow so high up into the air that he actually flew underneath it.
We even had a guy that picked up an oxen with his 50s coming off a target and flew under the oxen.
He then lands his plane, goes, apologizes, pays the farmer $16, loads what's left of the cow into his plane, brings it back to the base, and that's what everybody had for dinner that night.
Well, a lot of things were $16 back then.
Barbecue.
Regardless, the plane is...
But anyway, check him out. That's the fat electrician. You can see there where I got him. Major props. But I also got to give major props to the British dad, okay? So this guy's funny, and we've been talking about the UK, and what it is he had found out.
That was kind of my thing. My grandmother was an Egyptologist. My grandfather was a mycologist. I studied astrophysics at Bristol University. But one thing that I never quite understood the full concept of is how much of American history is recorded and how much inspiration you guys take from that. It's actually mind-blowing to see, and no wonder you are the most patriotic country in the world, because you celebrate the people who have actually achieved things. You celebrate the people that have put their heart and soul into fighting for what they believe in. And this story we're about to watch right now, I'm assuming it's going to be a really good one, because I kind of like went off and watched some of the Fat Electrician's videos like by myself offline, and I think I might have spoiled it because I don't want to do like I want to do a first time reaction to one. So here's one that I haven't like actually watched offline yet, and hopefully it's going to be just as good as the other ones because I'm learning more and more every day. I understand why you love this guy. Please hit me up with some more recommendations so I can learn some more if you want. And hey, if you get a chance, stick a like on the video. It really helps me out. You don't have to, but like I was supposed to ask apparently. But thank you so much for being here. I look forward to this video. If it's anywhere near as good as the other ones I've seen from him, then I know it's going to be amazing. Thank you.
All right, we gotta go. I gotta tell the internet what the guy named you after. Okay, you gotta hang out with Mom now.
So he named his kid after whoever he made this video about. So he obviously thought this person was very badass and had a lot of respect for him before he ever made this video.
Today we're talking about the most gangster politician in American history. Ladies and gentlemen, Cassius Marcellus Clay, aka the Lion of Whitehall. Whitehall being his family home that he grew up in Kentucky as the son of one of the richest slave owners in all of America. While going to college at Yale to become a lawyer, he would attend a speech from a famous abolitionist by the name of William Lloyd Garrison, and that speech would change the entire trajectory of Cassius Clay's life as well as American history. It is at that moment that Cassius Clay decided he was not only going to be quietly opposed to slavery, but that he was actively going to fight against it.
So whoever this is was the son of one of the richest slave owners of all time, and he decided he's going to live his life fighting against it. That's already badass. I mean, back then, oh, you must have had a big set of...
He would be set down the path to become the most influential abolitionist of all time. Oh god, forgot to do the ad. Hold on. Sorry for bothering the video, real quick.
All right, so we're going to leave the advert in as always because this is how he makes his money, and I don't want to affect his thing, like just out of pure respect. He lets us react to his content, which by the way is like an absolute amazing thing for a creator to do. So I don't leave this advert in. Go buy some of his stuff if you like it. Use his code to got over 30 retail locations across the United States and an even better online store that I'm going to have.
I had neither.
Oh, I don't know. I clicked on the video because like I obviously knew Muhammad Ali was originally called Cassius Clay.
Yeah.
But this is where he got that name from as well.
There you go.
That answers my question.
Somebody that believes we need to end slavery right now and they're willing to fight about it. And in the case of Cassius Clay, he was willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. You see, Cassius Clay wasn't just some punk kid that went off to college and decided that he didn't like slavery. This was the son of one of the wealthiest slave owners in all of America. So for him to come out and voice anti-slavery views was a huge deal, and it pissed off a lot of people. So being that this was the 1820s, what do you do when you're pissed off? You challenge somebody to a duel. So needless to say, the young Cassius Clay found himself partaking in an awful lot of duels, and he never, ever lost.
So this man made a moral decision in his head, and then he stood by it. Anyone, anytime, any place. Hey, talk about sticking by your values. Like, that's okay.
So, obviously, he's pretty good at it, and what do you do when you find something you're pretty good at? You want to keep doing it, right?
Teach.
Right. So Cassius Clay starts challenging anyone and everyone to a duel that dares to oppose him.
Why not?
It became common knowledge in his community that Cassius Clay would be willing to fight the wind if it blew from the west and he wanted it to blow from the east.
So straight away what I'm picking up is this man stood his ground no matter what. He believed in something, and there ain't nobody going to challenge him on it. He would fight the wind if it blew from the west and he wanted it to blow from the east. That's a badass reputation.
This man went on a dueling rampage, so much so that by the time he graduated college, he was considered to be the deadliest duelist in all of North America. This guy was putting slave owners in the dirt like he was Johnny Appleseed planting fucking trees. He became known as the deadliest abolitionist of all time. So he graduates from college, goes back home as a lawyer. Shortly after that, his father passes away and leaves everything to Cassius Clay. Cassius Clay immediately frees all of his father's slaves, costing himself $40,000, which is roughly $2 million today. And then he even gives some of the slaves land and money on top of it.
Immediately freed all of them.
How about
gave them
that?
Land and everything. Could have been one of the richest people in the country, but no, you stood by your morals, you stood by your values. Like, hey, massive respect. I can't believe I've never heard of this guy before.
Absolutely infuriating the pro-slavery people in Kentucky. So, what do you do when half the local population hates your guts? You run for public office.
Sounds about right for America, unless you're English, and then everyone that runs for public office is chosen by other people, not the actual people.
And that's exactly what Cassius Clay did. He served in the Kentucky state legislature from 1835 to 1841, and then finally lost his re-election, to which the pro-slavery crowd breathed a huge sigh of relief because they finally defeated Cassius Clay, or so they thought. Clay immediately starts traveling the country, giving amazing anti-slavery speeches, winning over hearts and minds, and this absolutely infuriates the pro-slavery people because they don't know how to stop him. You can't legally stop a guy from talking to people that want to listen to him, and they can't legally kill Cassius Clay in a duel because he's the best duelist on earth.
He's the best duelist on earth, and he's on a mission. It's going to be hard to stop someone like that. Well, illegally, it's going to be hard to stop someone like that. I'm guessing. I don't know, but did this guy get assassinated or something? Because it seems like that's where it's going to end up.
Check this one.
What do you do? You've got to illegally kill him.
Oh, he answered my question the very next
there you
sentence.
go.
Never mind.
All right. And then there's this.
So today we're getting lectured by a fat electrician, and once again, why we don't use AC. Oh, yeah, how
This
much
is
is
funny.
struggling with
You
the
know
heat,
about window cheese?
especially during night times. It's ironic that we complain here about the heat when we're in Scandinavia.
I'm just gonna come out and say it. The Europeans are apparently making window cheese, and you're gonna have to stick around if you want to know what that means.
Window cheese?
Today we're talking about the most important invention of the 20th century.
Okay, let me slow this down. Window cheese, man. You'll be totally amazed to find out what window cheese is.
Air conditioning. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty big claim. We came up with a lot of important stuff in the 20th century. That is true. However, air conditioning is the most important one. I'm going to prove it, and then I'm going to relentlessly talk smack about Europeans the entire time, right after word from my sponsor. This video is brought to you by
This is a good one.
World War III. It is a free-to-play online piece. I'm going to have a link in the discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. All right, why are we even talking about air conditioning right now? Okay, if you're not chronically on the internet like myself, A, good for you, but B, let me fill you in real quick. Every June or July, there's a magical time of year where the British experience a heat wave. There's newspaper articles, there's British and European people getting on the internet talking shit about how the Americans just don't understand a British heat wave. We couldn't possibly survive, yada, yada, yada. So then I get on there, I'm competitive, they're talking smack. It's like, okay, I mean, how hot is it over there? Never been there. Maybe it is super hot. I have no idea. So then you look into it, and all the headlines are like, the British heat wave has reached over 30 degrees Celsius
30
for the
degrees.
8th day in a row.
Yeah, all you have to do to convert is times 2 at
Is he from Texas?
Where is Fat Electrician from, actually? I don't know.
Must be a warm place.
Yeah, all you have to do to convert is times 2 at 32 and join the rest of the human race.
Okay, my country's flag is on the moon. I have no idea what 30 degrees Celsius is, so then you got to get on Google again. You got to ask it what 30 degrees Celsius is, converted into Fahrenheit, the superior way of measuring temperature. It's like 86 degrees, and these people are acting like they're melting. But actually, Celsius is better because it's a metric system. You know, that measurement system the entire world uses except for you guys. It's obviously the best. But no, it isn't. It doesn't even make sense. Okay, Fahrenheit is the easiest concept on the planet. 0 is cold, 100 is hot, based on the human experience. The end.
Did you
I had
think
no
about
idea.
that?
That's like 100 is really hot and 0 is really cold. Like based on our experience, what do you feel?
I mean, 100 here is
That makes
like
more
lava.
sense.
Not really, but it's the boiling
Based on
temperature.
In Celsius, yeah.
Yeah, and 0
Based on
is cold.
comfort.
Yeah, but it doesn't really comprehend.
0 is cold, 100 is hot, based on the human experience. The end. Celsius, on the other hand, is based on the freezing and boiling point of water, which doesn't even make sense because the freezing and boiling point of water isn't a constant. It depends on like 20 other variables, including altitude. Okay, when somebody asks you, how hot is it outside? Nobody's asking you, how does a glass of water at sea level feel about the temperature outside? No, I'm asking you, are my balls going to be sweaty if I go outside? Do I need to wear shorts? Do I need to bring baby powder? Is monkey butt a potential hazard? These are the questions I want to know. I don't
Monkey
give a fuck
butt.
how water feels about it.
He doesn't know what monkey butt is.
I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Anyways,
Makes
this
sense,
happens
though.
every year.
Where's the
Europeans
AC,
get on the
Brad?
internet, they complain about heat wave, 86 degrees. They pretend like they're melting. They say the Americans don't understand. We couldn't possibly survive a British heat wave. Yada, yada, yada. Well, this year, something amazing happened. The FIFA World Cup is in America.
Oh,
So
yeah.
a bunch of Europeans came to America, and they got to
I know where
experience
this is
American
going.
heat, and it became overwhelmingly obvious to them they are, in fact, just being giant pansy asses about the entire situation. At which point, the Europeans realized that they were wrong. They admitted defeat, and we all moved on. I'm just kidding. The Europeans pivoted. They moved the goalposts, and then the entire conversation became about air conditioning. Okay, I had no idea because I'm an American, and to be honest with you, I don't give a fuck about European politics, but apparently the British and the French are like morally and mentally just adamantly opposed to air conditioning to the point that it is literally a humongous political debate over there right now. And the right wing...
That one we don't have that. But look, is it right wing to have air conditioning? It's
What? What is that?
I don't know. I've missed this political debate down in the south.
What is not a political debate?
right wing and the left wing over in France is literally divided on air conditioning. Air conditioning in France is right wing technology. I'm not exaggerating. And me, with how my brain works, now I have to know the history of air conditioning. So, from the top. The first modern air conditioner was invented in 1902 by an engineer by the name of Willis Carrier. And Willis Carrier was hired by a publishing company to come in and solve a problem. The problem this publishing company had was that when they were trying to print things in summer, the heat and humidity was causing fluctuations in the paper and the printing process, giving them an inconsistent product that they weren't happy with. So he gets hired to come in and figure out a way to make their product more consistent while they're printing in summer. And his first option is, obviously, I'm just going to change the environment. I'm going to make it a constant. I'm going to get rid of the heat and the humidity so it's no longer a factor. Then we can tune the machines once and we can print away because it's always going to be the same temp and the same humidity in the factory. Okay, pause. I need you to understand, as a person in 2026 that's grown up with like modern technology, this sounds obvious, like duh, just do that. But at the time in 1902, Homeboy literally came out of left field and is like, clearly, I just have to change the rules of physics. I have to change the entire world around me so this works. I'm literally going to attempt to domesticate the fucking wind so I can print books. Okay, you understand how insane that is? That would be if like the Wright brothers, when they were trying to design an airplane, were like, fucking, we'll just turn off gravity. Duh. But somehow this guy manages to do it, fixes the printing problem, sees the potential, patents the idea, patents the phrase air conditioning, and then he goes and creates the Carrier air conditioning company, which is still around today, has like over 50,000 employees, and
You
it's
know,
worth
it's
over
$20 billion. It's his invention, and he still has that big market.
yeah.
Kind of cool, though.
It is. And it actually never struck me, the word in itself, air conditioning. I never thought about the word.
You conditioned air? Or
I guess so.
Yeah,
I just, you know, the air conditioning is cold to me.
exactly. It means
Never
cold.
thought of the word air conditioning.
I wonder what it looked like. It's probably
Oh, yeah. Like the first computer or something like that. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Father Mike Schmitz, and you're listening to the Bible in a in a Year podcast, where we encounter God's voice and live life through the lens of Scripture. The Bible in a Year podcast is brought to you by Ascension. Using the Great Adventure Bible timeline, we'll read all the way from Genesis to Revelation, discovering how the story of salvation unfolds and how we fit into that story today. It is day 235. We're reading Jeremiah chapter 14 and 15, as well as Ezekiel 43 and 44, and Proverbs chapter 15, verses 13 through 16. As always, the Bible translation that I'm reading from is the Revised Standard Version, Second Catholic Edition. I'm using the Great Adventure Bible from Ascension. If you want to download your own Bible in a Year reading plan, you can visit ascensionpress.com/Bible in a Year. You can also subscribe to this podcast and receive daily episodes. As I said, this day is day 235. We're reading Jeremiah 14 and 15, Ezekiel 43 and 44, and Proverbs 15, verses 13 through 16. The book of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 14, the great drought. The word of the Lord which came to Jeremiah concerning the drought. Judah mourns, and her gates languish. Her people lament on the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem goes up. Her nobles send their servants for water. They come to the cisterns. They find no water. They return with their vessels empty. They are ashamed and confounded and cover their heads because of the ground which is dismayed, since there is no rain on the land. The farmers are ashamed. They cover their heads. Even the deer in the field forsakes her newborn fawn because there is no grass. The wild donkeys stand on the bare heights. They pant for air like jackals. Their eyes fail because there is no herbage. Though our iniquities testify against us, act, O Lord, for your name's sake. For our backslidings are many. We have sinned against you. O you, hope of Israel, its Savior in time of trouble, why should you be like a stranger in the land, like a wayfarer who turns aside to linger for a night? Why should you be like a man confused, or like a mighty man who cannot save? Yet you, O Lord, are in the midst of us, and we are called by your name. Leave us not. Thus says the Lord concerning his people, they have loved to wander thus. They have not restrained their feet. Therefore the Lord does not accept them. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. The Lord said to me, do not pray for the welfare of this people. Though they fast, I will not hear their cry, and though they offer burnt offering and cereal offering, I will not accept them, but I will consume them by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. Denunciation of lying prophets, and a prayer for mercy. Then I said, ah, Lord God, behold, the prophets say to them, you shall not see the sword, nor shall you have famine, but I will give you assured peace in this place. And the Lord said to me, the prophets are prophesying lies in my name. I did not send them, nor did I command them or speak to them. They are prophesying to you a lying vision, worthless divination, and the deceit of their own minds. Therefore thus says the Lord concerning the prophets who prophesy in my name, although I did not send them, and who say, sword and famine shall not come on this land. By sword and famine those prophets shall be consumed. And the people to whom they prophesy shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem, victims of famine and sword, with none to bury them, their wives, their sons, and their daughters. For I will pour out their wickedness upon them. You shall say to them this word, let my eyes run down with tears night and day, and let them not cease. For the virgin daughter of my people is struck down with a great wound, with a very grievous blow. If I go out into the field, behold, those slain by the sword. And if I enter the city, behold, the diseases of famine. For both prophet and priest ply their trade through the land, and have no knowledge. Have you utterly rejected Judah? Does your soul loathe Zion? Why have you struck us down so that there is no healing for us? We looked for peace, but no good came, for a time of healing, but behold, terror. We acknowledge our wickedness, O Lord, and the iniquity of our fathers, for we have sinned against you. Do not spurn us for your name's sake. Do not dishonor your glorious throne. Remember and do not break your covenant with us. Are there any among the false gods of the nations that can bring rain? Or can the heavens give showers? Are you not he, O Lord our God? We set our hope on you, for you do all these things. Chapter 15. Anguish and terror foretold. Then the Lord said to me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my heart would not turn toward this people. Send them out of my sight and let them go. And when they ask you, where shall we go? You shall say to them, thus says the Lord, those who are for pestilence, to pestilence, and those who are for the sword, to the sword, those who are for famine, to famine, and those who are for captivity, to captivity. I will appoint over them 4 kinds of destroyers, says the Lord, the sword to slay, the dogs to tear, and the birds of the air, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. And I will make them a terror to all the kingdoms of the earth because of what Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah, king of Judah, did in Jerusalem. Who will have pity on you, O Jerusalem? Or who will bemoan you? Who will turn aside to ask about your welfare? You have rejected me, says the Lord. You keep going backward, so I have stretched out my hand against you and destroyed you. I am weary of relenting. I have winnowed them with a winnowing fork in the gates of the land. I have bereaved them. I have destroyed my people. They did not turn from their ways. I have made their widows more in number than the sand of the seas. I have brought against the mothers of young men a destroyer at noonday. I have made anguish and terror fall upon them suddenly. She who bore 7 has languished. She has swooned away. Her son went down while it was yet day. She has been shamed and disgraced. And the rest of them I will give to the sword before their enemies, says the Lord. Jeremiah pleads again and is reassured. Woe is me, my mother, that you bore me, a man of strife and contention to the whole land. I have not lent, nor have I borrowed, yet all of them curse me. So let it be, O Lord, if I have not entreated you for their good, if I have not pleaded with you on behalf of the enemy in the time of trouble and in the time of distress. Can one break iron, iron from the north and bronze? Your wealth and your treasures I will give as spoil, without price, for all your sins throughout all your territory. I will make you serve your enemies in a land which you do not know, for in my anger a fire is kindled which shall burn forever. O Lord, you know. Remember me. And visit me, and take vengeance for me on my persecutors. In your forbearance take me not away. Know that for your sake I bear reproach. Your words were found, and I ate them. And your words became to me a joy and the delight of my heart, for I am called by your name, O Lord God of hosts. I did not sit in the company of merrymakers, nor did I rejoice. I sat alone, because your hand was upon me. For you had filled me with indignation. Why is my pain unceasing, my wound incurable, refusing to be healed? Will you be to me like a deceitful brook, like waters that fail? Therefore, thus says the Lord, if you return, I will restore you, and you shall stand before me. If you utter what is precious and not what is worthless, you shall be as my mouth. They shall turn to you, but you shall not turn to them. And I will make you to this people a fortified wall of bronze. They will fight against you, but they shall not prevail over you, for I am with you to save you and deliver you, says the Lord. I will deliver you out of the hand of the wicked and redeem you from the grasp of the ruthless. The book of the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 43. The glory of the Lord entering the temple. Afterward, he brought me to the gate facing east. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the east, and the sound of his coming was like the sound of many waters, and the earth shone with his glory. And the vision I saw was like the vision which I had seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the vision which I had seen by the river Chebar, and I fell upon my face. As the glory of the Lord entered the temple by the gate facing east, the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the temple. While the man was standing beside me, I heard one speaking to me out of the temple, and he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the sons of Israel forever. And the house of Israel shall no more defile my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their harlotry and by the dead bodies of their kings, by setting their threshold by my threshold, and their doorposts beside my doorposts, with only a wall between me and them. They have defiled my holy name by their abominations which they have committed, so I have consumed them in my anger. Now, let them put away their idolatry and the dead bodies of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in their midst forever. And you, son of man, describe to the house of Israel the temple and its appearance and plan, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities. And if they are ashamed of all that they have done, portray the temple, its arrangements, its exits and its entrances, and its whole form, and make known to them all its ordinances and all its laws, and write it down in their sight, so that they may observe and perform all its laws and all its ordinances. This is the law of the temple. The whole territory round about the top of the mountain shall be most holy. Behold, This is the law of the temple. The altar. These are the dimensions of the altar by cubits, the cubit being a cubit and a handbreadth. Its base shall be 1 cubit high and 1 cubit broad, with a rim of 1 span around its edge. And this shall be the height of the altar, from the base on the ground to the lower ledge 2 cubits, with a breadth of 1 cubit. From the smaller ledge to the larger ledge 4 cubits, with a breadth of 1 cubit. And the altar hearth 4 cubits, and from the altar hearth projecting upward 4 horns 1 cubit high. The altar hearth shall be square, 12 cubits long by 12 broad. The ledge also shall be square, 14 cubits long by 14 broad, with a rim around it half a cubit broad, and its base 1 cubit round about. The steps of the altar shall face east. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says the Lord God, these are the ordinances for the altar. On the day when it is erected for offering burnt offerings upon it, and for throwing blood against it, you shall give to the Levitical priests of the family of Zadok, who draw near to me to minister to me, says the Lord God, a bull for a sin offering. And you shall take some of its blood, and put it on the 4 horns of the altar, and on the 4 corners of the ledge, and upon the rim round about. Thus you shall cleanse the altar, and make atonement for it. You shall also take the bull of the sin offering, and it shall be burnt in the appointed place belonging to the temple, outside the sacred area. And on the 2nd day, you shall offer a he-goat without blemish for a sin offering, and the altar shall be cleansed, as it was cleansed with the bull. When you have finished cleansing it, you shall offer a bull without blemish and a ram from the flock without blemish. You shall present them before the Lord, and the priests shall sprinkle salt upon them, and offer them up as a burnt offering to the Lord. For 7 days you shall provide daily a goat for a sin offering. Also a bull and a ram from the flock without blemish shall be provided. 7 days shall they make atonement for the altar and purify it, and so consecrate it. And when they have completed these days, then from the 8th day onward, the priests shall offer upon the altar your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, says the Lord God. Chapter 44, the closed gate. Then he brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces east, and it was shut. And he said to me, This gate shall remain shut. It shall not be opened, and no one shall enter by it, for the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered by it. Therefore it shall remain shut. Only the prince may sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by way of the vestibule of the gate, and shall go out by the same way. Those admitted to the temple. Then he brought me by the way of the north gate to the front of the temple, and I looked, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the temple of the Lord, and I fell upon my face. And the Lord said to me, Son of man, mark well, see with your eyes, and hear with your ears all that I shall tell you concerning all the ordinances of the temple of the Lord and all its laws, and mark well those who may be admitted to the temple and all those who are to be excluded from the sanctuary. And say to the rebellious house, to the house of Israel, Thus says the Lord God, O house of Israel, let there be an end to all your abominations, in admitting foreigners, uncircumcised in heart and flesh, to be in my sanctuary, profaning it, when you offer to me my food, the fat and the blood. You have broken my covenant, in addition to all your abominations. And you have not kept charge of my holy things, but you have set foreigners to keep my charge in my sanctuary. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, no foreigner, uncircumcised in heart and flesh, of all the foreigners who are among the people of Israel, shall enter my sanctuary. But the Levites, who went far from me, going astray from me after their idols, when Israel went astray, shall bear their punishment. They shall be ministers in my sanctuary, having oversight at the gates of the temple, and serving in the temple. They shall slay the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall attend on the people to serve them. Because they have ministered to them before their idols, and became a stumbling block of iniquity to the house of Israel. Therefore I have sworn concerning them, says the Lord God, that they shall bear their punishment. They shall not come near to me, to serve me as priest, nor come near any of my sacred things and the things that are most sacred, but they shall bear their shame because of the abominations which they have committed. Yet I will appoint them to keep charge of the temple, to do all its service and all that is to be done in it. The Levitical priests. But the Levitical priests, the sons of Zadok, who kept the charge of my sanctuary when the people of Israel went astray from me, shall come near to me to minister to me. And they shall attend on me to offer me the fat and the blood, says the Lord God. They shall enter my sanctuary, and they shall approach my table to minister to me, and they shall keep my charge. When they enter the gates of the inner court, they shall wear linen garments. They shall have nothing of wool on them while they minister at the gates of the inner court and within. They shall have linen turbans upon their heads, and linen breeches upon their loins. They shall not clothe themselves with anything that causes sweat. And when they go out into the outer court to the people, they shall put off the garments in which they have been ministering, and lay them in the holy chambers, and they shall put on other garments, lest they communicate holiness to the people with their garments. They shall not shave their heads, or let their locks grow long. They shall only trim the hair of their heads. No priest shall drink wine when he enters the inner court. They shall not marry a widow or a divorced woman, but only a virgin of the stock of the house of Israel, or a widow who is the widow of a priest. They shall teach my people the difference between the holy and the common, and show them how to distinguish between the unclean and the clean. In a controversy, they shall act as judges, and they shall judge in according to my judgments. They shall keep my laws and my statutes and all my appointed feasts, and they shall keep my Sabbaths holy. They shall not defile themselves by going near to a dead person. However, for father or mother, for son or daughter, for brother or unmarried sister, they may defile themselves. After he is defiled, he shall count for himself 7 days, and then he shall be clean. And on the day that he goes into the holy place, into the inner court to minister in the holy place, he shall offer his sin offering, says the Lord God. They shall have no inheritance. I am their inheritance. And you shall give them no possession in Israel, for I am their possession. They shall eat the cereal offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering, and every devoted thing in Israel shall be theirs. And the first of all the first fruits of all kinds, and every offering of all kinds from all your offerings shall belong to the priests. You shall also give to the priests the first of your course meal, that a blessing may rest on your house. The priests shall not eat of anything, whether bird or beast, that has died of itself, or is torn. The book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verses 13 through 16. A glad heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is broken. The mind of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but a cheerful heart has a continual feast. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Father in heaven, we give you praise and thank you so much. God, please receive our praise today. Please receive our voice, receive our heart, receive just, God, our gift of thanksgiving, because this day, none of us did anything to deserve it. It's just your gift to us. And so we give it back to you. We give it back to you in praise. We give it back to you in thanksgiving, and we give it back to you with humble hearts because, Lord God, we did nothing to deserve it. So may you be praised this day and every day. In Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, amen. That last proverb, man, better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with that, trouble with it. That, so much is packed up into that, isn't that? So many of these proverbs, they have such potency, right? They have such wisdom, and yet we can just pass on by them really, really simply. But better is a little, as long as we have fear of the Lord. I can be in want materially, I can have a short life even, but if that life is marked by the fear of the Lord, that good fear of the Lord, right? That sense of awe, that sense of, I realize who God is and who I am, versus great treasure and trouble, like great treasure and not having the fear of the Lord, that would be a tragedy. And that is the tragedy that marks so many of our lives. And maybe it marked our lives leading up to this Bible in a year. Maybe our lives are marked by not really knowing who God is until here we are on day 235, and God reveals himself to us and we realize, my gosh, Lord, every day I learn a little bit more about you, and every day you just show me who you are. So gosh, this is what a gift. I'm going almost back to the prayer. I thought I was praying again, because it just is one of those gifts of recognizing that this has been a gift, 235 days worth of gift every single day. And what are we going to do with that gift? In Jeremiah and Ezekiel, remember, keep in mind the context. Jeremiah, he's got to preach for another 40 years or so. Ezekiel, he's coming into the end of this book of Ezekiel, and the same call is the same, right? It's to come back to the Lord. It's to recognize that at some point time is running out. I love this, in chapter 14 of Jeremiah, the word of the Lord comes to Jeremiah and he says, here's Judah mourns, right? Remember Judah, here's Jerusalem, here's the south, this kingdom that lasts, that's still present, that's going to be attacked. The Babylonians are going to conquer it. They're going to bring the people into exile. And yet it says this, it says, her nobles send their servants for water. They come to the cisterns, but they find no water. They return with their vessels empty. And that's the thing, is like there's that sense of, because we've been faithless to the Lord, there is no fruit to find. Because gosh, how many times has God said, if you're faithful to me, come back to me, and there'll be fruitfulness in the land. There'll be strength in the land. There'll be abundance in the land. And what have the people chosen to do? They've chosen, as it goes on to say, in this very, very same chapter, it talks about the false prophets and the lying prophets. Here's what Jeremiah says. He says, "Ah, Lord God, behold," this is chapter 14, verse 13. It says, "Lord God, behold, the prophets say to them, you shall not see the sword, you won't have famine. I'll give you assured peace in this place." And God is saying, no, those are lies. Now, I wonder how many false prophets we have in our world. Or that's easy to say, like when it comes to culture, well, this person on TV and that person on the radio. How many false prophets do we allow in our life, like in my life? How many false prophets do I allow? People who maybe they speak words that I find compelling. Maybe they speak words that I really like to hear. Maybe they even give me consolation, right? Maybe they even give me some comfort. But if it's not true, then that's a false prophecy, right? If it's not true, then it's not something I need to give my attention to, because, I have this paraphrase of C.S. Lewis, and the paraphrase is something along the lines of, the only reason to believe anything is because it's true. We don't believe something because it makes us happy. We don't believe something because it makes us behave well. The only reason to believe anything is because it's true. And so one of the things we want to be as men and women who are convicted by the truth that's uttered by the Lord, and even the truths of God that are uttered not by God, but uttered by instruments of God. But that means we have to be on the fence against those false prophets, right? Those lies that we've allowed to creep into our hearts. Again, it's so easy to let's go to the news. Let's go to the people who have a big platform. But what are the lies that I've allowed to take up root in my life? What are the lies that I've given power to in my life? And those lies can be lies of condemnation, right? They can be lies of destruction, but they can also be lies that offer me comfort when it's not time for comfort. They can be lies that say, hey, just wait later. I know God's calling you to change, but there's time later on to change. What are some of those false prophets that are in my life that, like Jeremiah, I just have to say, I'm intolerant of those lies. Jeremiah goes on to say, this is so powerful. He says, and this is in still chapter 14. He says, "Let my eyes run down with tears night and day." Remember, Jeremiah is the weeping prophet. "Let my eyes run down with tears night and day, and let them not cease. For the virgin daughter of my people is struck down with a great wound, with a grievous blow." And he goes on to say, if I go in the field, there's those slain by the sword. In the city, there's people who die of famine. That even the prophet and the priest, they ply their trade in the land and have no knowledge. That's a picture of devastation. Those people who should know, they don't know. People who should have life, there's no life. And so here is Jeremiah, who is the true prophet, right? He's speaking truth. And his heart is broken because of this. And so here's the call for all of us, right? What are those false prophets in my life that are either speaking words of condemnation that are false, or words of comfort that are false? But also, where in my life am I called to be like Jeremiah and weep for what needs to be wept for, right? Those injustices that need to be stood up against and spoken against. Where do I need to be that prophet Jeremiah who speaks the truth, right? Speaks words of consolation when those are needed, words of comfort when they're needed, but also words of conviction when those are needed. One last note of Ezekiel. We're coming to the end of this vision, of the incredible vision of this new temple in the book of the prophet Ezekiel. Remember, we're getting to the end. We only have a couple of chapters left when it comes to the book of the prophet Ezekiel. But what does he see? He says the glory of the Lord that comes back to this new temple. Remember, one of the most devastating visions that Ezekiel had earlier on was he saw the glory of the Lord depart from the temple because the people were false. because the people were false to temple worship. They were turning to false gods. And he said this tragic, tragic image where he saw the glory of the Lord rise up and then leave. But here in these chapters, we see this. We see that the glory of the Lord comes back to the temple, which is such an incredible gift of God. And it's what we need to pray for. We need to pray for God. Wherever there's dead parts of our lives, there are places in my life where the Spirit of the Lord has departed. Remember when Samson, his hair was cut by Delilah, and it said the Spirit of the Lord departed from him, and he didn't realize it? But later on, he prayed, Lord, let your Spirit come upon me one last time that I may perish with the Philistines. This is almost an image like that, where the Spirit of the Lord had departed and they didn't even realize it. But here Ezekiel is saying the day is going to come when the Spirit of the Lord comes back. And will you realize it then? The Spirit of power and of love and of self-control. And in Jesus Christ, he gives us that Holy Spirit. And right now you are a temple of the Holy Spirit. And that Spirit of God does rest upon you. And he acts and works within you. What an incredible, incredible gift on this day. Wow. This is just amazing. It's just so amazing. I'm praying for you because you're a temple of the Holy Spirit. And so often we live without the Spirit, right? So often we live without the power that God gives us, the power of Jesus Christ risen from the dead that dwells inside of us. And yet so often we don't walk in that power. We don't speak in that power. We don't love in that power. We just try to speak and walk on our own power and love on our own power. And yet you have more than that. You have Jesus. You have his Spirit. So I'm praying for you that you walk in that Spirit, that you speak in that Spirit, that you love in that Spirit. And please pray for me that I can do the same thing. Yeah, my name's Father Mike. I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. God bless.
Everything's going smoothly. I got my new buttons here, okay? And these are from album covers that I like. And I got the jack in there too, Scott Hamilton from Tucson there. Got that in there. I was supposed to go to this. I got invited, but wasn't able to make it. So, you guys have your survival radio in case you need it? It's good to have. And then over here, I got my jug. The dragon's trying to get in there. But anyway, I'll have these half ounce at the Power Station Nutrition Cafe inside LA Fitness. And if you happen to go over there, you don't have to be a member to go in. Just say, hey, I'm going over to see Tim at the Power Station. And if you mention the show, you get them for $7, man. You get a half ounce for $7. So now it's time to eat my cupcake. And I want to send one of the packages of Hostess, not Hostess, but Great Value cupcakes over to the British dad because somebody sent him some Little Debbie's, and these Great Value are a lot better. But I wanted to go back to the electrician deal where we left off. And this is the fat electrician, and they're talking about how air conditioning was first invented to help with printing, and then Carrier was the guy, and then Carrier went on, of course, is still going today. So, but their amazement when you find out about window cheese, okay, I could not think of what the heck it was that he was talking about when he said window cheese, but now I understand totally, and I don't understand.
Air conditioning is like primarily used in these factory type settings. In 1914, there are some people starting to get air conditioners in their homes, but it's extremely rare. By the early 1930s, they are starting to have like commercial air conditioning units that you can put in a home, but they cost like $10,000, which in 1932, convert that to today's money, it's almost like $250,000 for a window air conditioning unit. But people were willing to pay it because if you got the money, not having ball sweat is priceless. Oddly enough, you can make the argument that air conditioning is actually responsible for movies, TV, and Hollywood as a whole. Because outside of manufacturing, one of the first industries to adopt air conditioning is movie theaters, which makes so much sense because I cannot tell you how many times I've been shown like, oh, this is a silent film from 19 whatever the fuck, and oh, it was so funny at the time, blah, 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 blah. Nobody was going to movie theaters in the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s because they enjoyed watching silent films. They were going because that was the only place they could go to get air conditioning and get out.
That's insane.
Is that for real?
I think so. I think they told me it is real.
Wow.
That is a selling point. It's crazy.
I never heard of that.
So that cinema was just enjoy yourself and just chill in the refrigerated
wash air.
But I mean, the movie must have had some percent of of them going there.
For sure.
But this is crazy.
It's just fat electrician's way of saying it.
Yeah. Wow.
Of the heat for 2 hours. You can actually go back and read accounts from people at the time where they're like, yeah, no, we don't go to the movie theater because we give a shit about the movie. We just go so we can go there to cool off. So in a way, it's pretty likely, or at least you could argue that if it wasn't for air conditioning, the film industry as we know it today might not exist. Regardless, movie theaters were a lot of people's first encounter with air conditioning, and once they saw it, they're like, holy shit, this is awesome. I want to get it inside my house. But from here, the cost of air conditioners actually plummets because it's something that everybody can use and everybody wants. It's just like TVs. When I was a kid growing up, a flat screen TV was like $12,000. Some absurd amount of money. And today, I can go to Walmart and buy a 70-inch flat screen TV that's better than those TVs when I was growing up for like $400. So
I said it in my reaction that it's become sleet or sling. Like you use it and throw it out.
Yeah,
it must be strange for you as well. When you grew up, TVs.
Absolutely. Before those flat screens with those big lumps of TVs with like built-in good sounds, they were like, I don't know, $4,000 for one of those. And I think the biggest of those, I think, was like 32 inches.
Okay, yeah.
It might be bigger out there, but as I can remember that. And nowadays, I mean, look at your TV, look at my TV.
We're not in a
if it's
stature
just
exactly. So back then, a good TV was like, oh, he's rich.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was like having AC.
And got incredibly cheap, incredibly fast when you compare it to pretty much anything else. And by the 1950s, they were starting to have literal experiments that they would call air-conditioned villages. Basically, they were new housing developments where all these new homes had air conditioning in them, and they actually had psychologists and scientists go in, and the families that bought these homes volunteered to be studied for over a year to see the impacts of living in an air-conditioned climate in your home and how it would affect you. People had no idea what would happen. Would they go crazy? Would they not be able to handle going outside anymore? These were all huge unknowns at the time. And you want to know what the psychologists and the scientists concluded about living in air conditioning? It's pretty fucking awesome, okay? They found out that everybody slept better, and they also found out that the housewives were reporting back to the psychologists that their husbands, and I quote, had a better disposition, aka their husbands weren't as fucking grumpy all the time. You can go back and read the articles. We'll read one right now. Headline: Air conditioning helps with disposition. Women living in air-conditioned homes in Austin, Texas, the air-conditioned village, startled a team of psychologists and researchers by asserting their husbands' dispositions had somehow miraculously improved under the influence of air conditioning. Hey, when you're not hot, you're not grumpy. Fucking shocking, I know. Oddly enough, statistical data collected by these researchers indicated that indoor conditions within these homes could be conducive to support this opinion of these air-conditioned housewives. Reading newspapers from the 50s is crazy because it's just like, well, the housewives are saying their husbands are in the better mood, but Them bitches are crazy. We can't trust them. We need empirical data to prove their opinion might be correct.
It's weird.
But even more strongly indicated is the likely possibility that the women themselves, as a result of enjoying the comforts of air conditioning, were able to look upon their spouses with a little more than usual benevolence. Okay, translation, mom and dad are both in a better mood because nobody's sweating their ass off all day. Obviously. Okay, just so we're all on the same page, if you're not picking up on a put down so far, air conditioning might be responsible for the entire film industry, TV as we know it today. It helps keep families together, and that's just scratching the surface on why it's the most important invention of the 20th century. Just to prove my point, let's have a thought exercise. I asked Google, completely blind. I had some guesses because I know a little bit about history, but I just went in blind and asked Google, what are the most important inventions of the 20th century? Let's see what they came up with. So coming in at number 1, we have the transistor, obviously extremely important, but the mass manufacturing of transistors isn't possible without air conditioning because in order to manufacture a transistor, you need purified air, humidity control, and temperature control, all of which are provided by air conditioning. So, no air conditioning, no mass manufacturing of transistors. One more point. Coming in at number 2, the internet, okay? Internet also can't exist without AC because the internet is run off of a bunch of server farms, which also need to be in a climate-controlled environment. You ever been inside of a server room? Pretty cold, pretty purified air. Can't have it without air conditioning. Coming in at number 3, penicillin. Obviously, incredibly important. The world's first antibiotic saved tens, if not hundreds of millions of lives since it was invented. And you know what? Would it exist without air conditioning? Almost certainly. However, would you be able to mass manufacture it to the degree that we do today as safely as we do without air conditioning? Absolutely not. Number 4, mass production of automobiles. Could that exist without air conditioning? Yes, it could. However, if you look at where most cars are manufactured, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Mexico, none of those places would be able to crank out cars to the degree that they do without air conditioning because you would have workers dropping out from heat stroke. In fact, most of the major cities in America that are in a hotter climate, like, I don't know, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, Orlando, Atlanta, all of which would probably exist to some degree if it wasn't for air conditioning, but air conditioning allowed them to grow into major metropolitan, which would probably exist to some degree if it wasn't for air conditioning, but air conditioning allowed them to grow into major metropolitan areas. It's literally a saying, air conditioning made Phoenix possible. And last but not least, the airplane. Now, would the Wright brothers have strapped some wings to a bicycle, drove it off a cliff, and figured out how to fly? Absolutely. Is commercial flight without air conditioning as we know it today possible? Absolutely not. The inside of that cabin on that plane would be 400 degrees if it wasn't for air conditioning. So yes, air conditioning is the most important invention.
But you know, when you enter a plane before the AC is on, it's so freaking hot.
Yeah, that's why I always want to wait until I'm bored. I don't want to get up.
Of the 20th century. Which raises the question, why the fuck don't the Europeans just use it?
Right. Yeah, I know this movie.
Great movie.
Yeah. He only took him down because he couldn't see the view no more. What's he doing?
And the answers to that question might be the most infuriating answers to a question I've ever gotten in my entire life. Answer number 1. Europeans don't need air conditioning because the climate isn't as hot as America. Now, setting aside the fact that that proves the initial point that America is hotter and we could survive a British heat wave, we'll just set that off to the side real quick. The Europeans say shit like, well, we wouldn't run them that often and we would only need them for like 1 month a year. Cool. Do you know how much shit I own that I don't need very often? I've had a spare tire in every car I've ever owned my entire life. I've never had to use it. I've still fucking got it just in case. If there was something that I only needed to use 30 days a year to make sure my balls weren't hot while I was trying to sleep, you best believe I'm gonna fucking own it. Oh, well, Europeans are tougher than you Americans. We'll just grit our teeth and bear it. Are you? Are you really? Because last I checked, 175,000 fucking people died from heat stroke because you're too fucking stupid to buy an air conditioner. Do you understand how insane that is? If there was any other event on the planet that killed 175,000 people, there would be memorials and statues commemorating what a tragedy this was. But because it's just you guys being like, well, the Americans invented a machine that can domesticate wind, but we don't want to admit they're right, so we would rather let all our young and elderly die of heat stroke than give them the W.
ADS.
What are you doing? Okay, which leads right into the next argument, the most infuriating one, because I used to build shit for a living.
Yeah,
Americans don't understand because our homes are actually built to retain heat, so an air conditioner wouldn't work as well for us. Motherfucker, that's just insulation. That's how insulation works, okay? Do you have a thermos? If you put hot tea or whatever stupid shit you guys drink in a thermos, you know how it stays hot? Now dump it out and put fucking ice water in it. The ice water stays cold, okay? Your house isn't specifically designed to be hot inside. It's designed to have a controlled temperature regardless of what's going on outside. So if you buy an air conditioner and you cool off the house, it stays fucking cool. Well, air conditioning is really expensive. No, it isn't.
No, he's really angry.
Really right. It's funny as hell.
It's really funny. I feel, what do you say? Träffad.
Okay. Yeah,
I feel offended.
I think it's hilarious. It's so funny that he's so worked up also. I like that. It's so funny. This guy is so smart. Yeah. And the amount of like reading he does before he does one of these.
Yeah.
He's so fast and so smart.
Right, he's so skilled. And it's fun because we always watch America like from our lens. Yeah, it's funny to hear how stuck up we look. To them.
You cool off the house, it stays fucking cool. Well, air conditioning's really expensive. No, it isn't. You can buy a window unit for $169 to cool off the room that you sleep in, or your living room, or whatever, okay? The average minimum wage of Europe is $8.33 American. That's 20 hours of the most unskilled labor that you have available in exchange for a magic box that domesticates the fucking wind so you don't have to sweat your balls off. Okay, that is a modern miracle, and you're saying that that's too expensive? I would pay an outrageous amount of money to see a British person go back in time and talk to one of their ancestors, some medieval peasant picking turnips outside of a castle, and explain to them that in the future, there's a magical box that can make the house cold when it's hot outside. And in exchange for that, all they had to do was work 20 hours, and they could cool off their house for years upon years to come, and then explain to them with deadpan stare, but I don't do it because it's expensive.
Are you pulling my leg?
Motherfucker, it's literally magic to these people. You have the opportunity to buy climate changing magic for 20 hours of your time, and you're just like, nah, I'd rather let grandma and grandpa die from heat stroke. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm slowly coming around to the idea that this is actually a conspiracy by the European governments to slowly kill off old people so they don't break their universal healthcare system. There's no other logical explanation for why you would be anti-air conditioning. And apparently one of the big talking points is, oh, well, air conditioning is actually bad for climate change, so it's only making the problem worse. And then the climate activists get on CNN or the BBC or whatever, and they're giving interviews offering alternatives to air conditioning that you could do. I'm gonna show you, because if I didn't show you the interview, you wouldn't believe me. Their solutions get progressively worse, but we're gonna go ahead and start off with their best solution. Solution number one.
If it gets really hot, I sleep under a wet sheet. That's my other technique.
How about no?
With a big bucket of water under the desk with my feet in the bucket of water.
Option number two, soak your feet in a bucket of water while you're sitting at home all day long. Also, no. B, I know your house fucking stinks. It smells like wet feet and BO because you're not wearing deodorant and you don't have air conditioning, and I know you're sitting in the house sweating your ass off 24/7. No, I'm not doing it. And option number three, I can't believe this is real.
No.
Including, would you believe it, painting windows with yogurt.
With yogurt.
But she can't be for real, right?
Yogurt.
That must be irony.
How are you this?
Yeah, right?
Your solution, rather than just admitting the Americans are onto something with this air conditioning shit, is to smear yogurt on your fucking windows. You want to make window cheese rather than just turn on an air conditioner. How do you not see how fucking insane that sounds? Like, one of your biggest talking points is air conditioning is expensive. How expensive is it to smear a new layer of yogurt on all the windows on your house and then have your house smell like curdled milk and still be hot as shit? I can't even begin to fathom the amount of desperation and misery the person that figured this out was experiencing. Do you know how fucking hot and sweaty and delirious you have to be sitting at home in your living room on the couch for you to finally go, I gotta do something. I'm gonna try smearing yogurt on my windows.
Are you okay?
Fine, just
yeah.
threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Like, what are you doing? Just get an air conditioner, for the love of God. Oh my God. At this point, I'm convinced that air conditioning could prevent World War III if you guys would just do it. No wonder you guys are always starting world wars and dragging us into it. You're all fucking grumpy and hot 24/7. Get some AC and come up with a peace treaty. I don't ever want to hear a European talk shit about America being dumb ever again. They always love to bring up like, oh, America has a bunch of gun violence, blah, 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 blah. Cool. More people are dying because you refuse to use air conditioning than Americans are dying from gun violence, all right? And by a lot, it's not even close. Europe is losing 175,000 people a year. To put that into perspective, America had roughly 60,000 people die in the Vietnam War. How do you not see how insane that is? Air conditioning at this point is like the cheapest, most cost-effective, life-saving technology on the planet, and you're just like, nah, I don't want it. And the most beautiful part about all this is I know for a fact there's going to be a ton of keyboard warriors with a bunch of stupid talking points and smug comments in the comment sections, and this is going to get clipped and put on Twitter and Instagram and all these other places, and it's going to be all these comments, and you know what? None of those comments would be possible without air conditioning, because without air conditioning, the internet that you're using wouldn't function, and the phone you're holding in your hand wouldn't have been able to get manufactured. You are proving my point that air conditioning is the most important invention.
As I said, this guy is so skilled. Yeah. He's so fast, and it was really funny to see him a bit, upset today. I like that. It was funny. And I was totally oblivious to this AC war going on in Europe.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you guys. See you later.
Okay, here's some ideas.
In February 2021, 4.5 million Texas homes went dark in a deadly freeze. Families with $10,000 generators sat cold when the propane ran out. Meanwhile, an 83-year-old widow in Abilene stayed warm for 9 days using tricks her mother taught her during the Depression. Number 14 is how she did it. Number 3 uses physics that a $400 gadget cannot duplicate. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 20 poor man blackout tricks that make high-tech prepper gear look ridiculous. Number 20, the Crisco candle. Walk into any prepper store and they will sell you a rechargeable LED lantern for $180 that dies in 12 hours. Your grandmother would have laughed. A 48-ounce can of vegetable shortening, the kind that costs about $6 at any grocery store, becomes a candle that burns for over 40 days. You push a wick or even a rolled strip of cotton from an old t-shirt down into the center of the shortening with a pencil. Leave a half-inch sticking out. Light it. That is the whole trick.
Remember that.
The shortening melts slowly around the flame and feeds it, exactly the way tallow candles worked for centuries before electricity. The flame is steady, bright enough to read by, and the can itself is the holder, so nothing tips or spills. During the Depression, families who could not afford paraffin candles made lights from lard, bacon grease, and drippings because fat burns and fat was free. 1 can in the pantry means a month of light for the price of a fancy coffee. The $180 lantern needs a wall outlet to come back to life. The Crisco can just needs a match. When the power dies, one of those two things is useless, and it is not the one your great-grandmother would have reached for. Number 19, the bathtub trick. Preppers pay $35 for a plastic bladder called a water bob that fits in your bathtub and holds drinking water. It is a fine product. It is also a fancy version of something poor families have done for 100 years for the cost of nothing. The moment a storm warning hits, before the grid fails, you scrub the tub and you fill it to the brim. That is up to 80 gallons of water for flushing toilets, washing hands, and boiling. If you want it cleaner, you line the tub first with 2 clean, heavy-duty contractor bags, $8 for plastic money, and fill those. Then you fill it hot, every pitcher, every single jug in the house. Municipal water pressure often keeps running for hours after the electricity dies. Because houses are medicine. The families who came through hurricanes in the 1950s along the Gulf Coast knew this rhythm by heart. Radio says, storm, tub gets filled. No one thought of preparedness. They called it common sense. Water weighs 8 pounds a gallon, and you cannot make it out of thin air when the taps go dry. The trick is not equipment. The trick is timing, and timing is free. Number 18, frozen jugs as thermal mass. Here is a secret refrigeration engineers will confirm. An empty freezer fails fast. A full freezer holds cold for 2 full days. Poor families figured this out the moment home freezers arrived in the 1950s, when a freezer full of food represented a month of wages. They filled every empty gap with water jugs and let them freeze solid. Those blocks of ice act as thermal mass, a cold battery. When the power cuts out, the ice holds the temperature down and buys you 48 hours or more as long as you keep the door shut. And when the ice finally melts, you're left with jugs of clean drinking water, exactly when you need it most. One trick, 2 jobs, $0. Compare that to the $300 refrigerator battery backups that die in 10 hours. A farm wife in Iowa in 1962 was outperforming that technology with milk jugs and tap water. Move a couple of frozen jugs into the refrigerator side, and it becomes an old-fashioned ice box that keeps milk and leftovers safe for another day or two. Your great-grandparents lived their entire lives with ice boxes.
Yeah.
The knowledge did not disappear. We just stopped listening to it.
Yep.
Number 17, the quarter in the cup. This one costs 25 cents, and it answers a question no gadget answers well. You come home after being away during an outage. The power is back on. The freezer is humming. Everything looks frozen. But did it thaw and refreeze while you were gone? Because if it did, that meat could put you in the hospital. The old trick is simple.
My freezer tells me on my phone. So we have a lot of technology, but some of these ideas were good. Let me see here. This quarter thing was cool.
Frozen water in your freezer with the quarter sitting on top of the ice. If
Just put it on top of the ice.
Everything thawed completely and refroze, and it all goes in the trash. If it's frozen halfway down, things got soft.
Yeah, but if it does, you don't want to eat that food,
Since home freezers existed, some of the ice cube in the bag because a ruined freezer of food was a financial disaster worth guarding against. Today they sell digital freezer monitors with Wi-Fi alerts for $60, which is wonderful until the Wi-Fi is down, which during a blackout it is. The quarter does not need a network. The quarter does not need a charge. The quarter just tells the truth. Number 16, dollar store lights. This might be the single highest value blackout trick in America, and it hides in plain sight in your neighbor's flower bed. Solar Garden Catholic hospitals at our each. They charge themselves all day, every day, for free, and they were doing it long before you needed them. When the grid fails, you walk outside at dusk, pull the stakes out of the ground, and bring them in. Stand each one in an empty jar or a cup of dried rice, and you have a lamp in every room. In the morning, you set them back outside on the windowsill or the porch, and they recharge for the next night. This cycle repeats forever, or at least for years, with zero fuel, zero battery supply, zero effort, $10 covers the whole house. Meanwhile, Pepper sells $250 solar generators with panels, cables, maps, doing fundamentally the same thing with more steps. Retirees on fixed incomes in Florida hurricane country have been running this way for 2 decades. Every summer the garden looks nice, every storm season, the garden is a backup lighting system. That is what poor man engineering looks like. One purchase, 2 jobs, no waste. First pattern, here's what the survival industry does not want you to sit with. Preparedness in America is now a multi-billion-dollar business, and that business runs on one fuel, and it is not propane. It is fear. Fear sells the $3,000 generator, the $400 water filter, the $300 bucket of freeze-dried lasagna that tastes like drywall. But your great-grandparents lived through blackouts constantly because for them, electricity itself was the new luxury that failed all the time. They did not own gear. They owned habits. The dripping can by the stove, the full pantry, the wool blankets in the cedar chest, the neighbors they knew by first name. Every trick on this list survived because it worked when nothing else was available. You cannot say that about a gadget with...
Okay, so let's go back to this one now. This is
okay. So some people might be wondering where I was over the weekend. So I kind of like had a little bit of a rough Friday, but also as a bonus, I got my first ever YouTube payment. What I did was I decided, you know what, I've got the weekend off work. I've been working my butt off for so long, so we decided to go to the zoo.
Maybe I'll get a YouTube
and we had a wonderful time. It was great. And then the next day we went for a day out at the beach, and that was lovely. And it totally like recharged my batteries. It was just what we needed. And now we're back at it. We're making videos again. Also, I did want to add in there that I bought myself a little tie clip, and I think in freedom money it was about $4. But like I've always wanted one, so like I'm kind of happy with myself. I feel like I look a little bit snazzy. Now back to the video. Here we go. So I read a comment under one of my last videos that the very first video that I ever experienced the Fat Electrician. It did send me down a rabbit hole, and he's got another channel which is called the Fat Files, which actually I find that very interesting as well. But there was one of the comments that I read on that video that said react to World War III. And then I read it again, and it said World War III. And I thought, no, that's just like one of them, you know, spell check things, and it's just spell checked it, and it's turned it from 3 to 3. So I searched up like Fat Electrician World War III, and it's not there. It is actually World War III. And okay, whatever. I've totally got to watch this. So here we are, my first time ever watching World War III, when apparently America nearly started World War III because of a tree. Like, I don't even know what to expect. Yes, that time that North Korea told America that we couldn't trim a tree, and America was legitimately ready to start World War III about it. World War III, if you will. Okay, so we're like 10 seconds in, and that has got to have been the craziest intro clip that I've heard so far. Like, there's a phrase, I'm willing to die on this hill, and Americans just take that to a whole new level. Like, totally willing to start a world war over a tree. Like, that's crazy. If Toby Keith was alive today, he would be saying, you better trim your tree because Uncle Sam's boot in your ass is bad for your health. Today we're talking about the Korean axe murder incident and America's response to that incident, Operation Paul Bunyan. But first, this video is brought to you by the 2 biggest sponsors of the channel. Yo, as always, we're going to watch the guy's advertisement because this is how he makes his money, and I don't want to take away from that. He's worked hard, he deserves this, so I'm leaving it in. I hope you can understand that. Thank you. You got Zydex custom gaming PCs, computers built right here in America with American-made tech support, and they have a lifetime warranty. They can build you anything you want to any spec you want, but also they have some that are already pre-built.
So this PC that I'm using right now is my first ever PC, to the point where I still type with 2 fingers, and it really limits me as to what I can do. That would be amazing. One day.
And ready to ship. And then, of course, my favorite sporting goods store, Shields. They've got over 30 amazing retail locations all across the United States. I'm not just saying that because they're giving me money. It's legitimately the best sporting goods store I've ever set foot in. But if you don't live near one of the retail locations, they have...
I've never heard of this before. We don't have this in England.
An even better online store with price matching and satisfaction guaranteed. I'm going to have links and discount codes for both those sponsors in the description down below and on my website, thefatelectrician.com. Let's get back to the video. All right, once upon a time, July 1953, North and South Korean leadership would meet in a small village known as Poonjong, right...
Poonjong? That sounds like a storage cupboard where Diddy keeps his baby oil.
Near the 30th parallel, where they would sign an armistice that would technically only pause, but essentially end the Korean War. From this moment forward, we have the official military demarcation line, essentially the line in the sand separating North and South Korea. Surrounding that demarcation line is a 2.5 mile wide, 160 mile long buffer zone known as the DMZ, the Demilitarized Zone. And that's pretty much it. The Iron Curtain goes up, North Korea becomes the world's largest secret society, and the entire world gets to stand by and watch as there is a competition between capitalism and communism to see which one is actually better. And well, 70 years later, the results are visible from outer space.
All right, so I'm just going to move my camera for this one because I just want you to see, like, in South Korea, that is a complete first world country with so many lights and everything at night. And then in North Korea, there's just no electricity on, apart from in one city. That is insane to think about, the difference in lifestyle compared to just over one border. Why is Kim Jong spending all his money on his military when he should be supporting his people? This makes no sense to me.
Wait, let me guess. You're going to say that's not real communism. Well, I'll tell you what. Every time anything bad happens under capitalism, I'm just going to respond by saying, oh, well, that's not real capitalism. How about that? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyways, that village where the treaty was signed would go on to become the JSA, or the Joint Security Area. And in theory, this was supposed to be the only point where North and South Korean forces could intermingle. The North Koreans could pass the armistice line into South Korea, and vice versa, provided everybody stayed within the confines of this particular village. Obviously, the point of having a place like this was so that everybody could have a place to exchange prisoners, have peace talks, what have you. But naturally, the intermingling of North Korean and UN forces over the course of time would lead to a bunch of fights breaking out. Luckily, they foresaw this coming, and there was very strict rules about having firearms inside of the JSA, and generally speaking, nobody really ever had them on them. Despite that, there were so many skirmishes so often that the UN would try to get North Korea to agree that they should still abide by the demarcation line. North Koreans stay on their half of the JSA, and South Korean and UN forces stay on their half of the JSA. North Korea consistently refused.
Okay, so as an Englishman, I'm not going to say my opinions on the UN, and I'm definitely not going to say my opinions on NATO. But North Korea not taking advice from outside? What a surprise!
And that's all the background info you need. So, fast forward, August 6, 1976. Inside the JSA, there's a bridge. That bridge is called the Bridge of No Return because once you cross that bridge, you not only cross the military demarcation line, but you also cross the border to the JSA, meaning that you are now inside of North Korea, hence the name, the Bridge of No Return. As you can see here on the JSA side of the bridge, there's military checkpoint 3. As I'm sure you can imagine, that's very important because, well, if the North Koreans are going to attack, they're probably going to incorporate that bridge somehow. They've got a military observation post right there. If the North Koreans are coming, they're going to send off the warning. Next thing you know, all of America knows that you're here.
Yo, this guy's memes are amazing. Notice how he said all of America knows you're here before he mentioned the UN. My guy.
All right, but the problem is right next to checkpoint 3, there's a big-ass 100-foot high poplar tree, and that tree is blocking the vision from all the other checkpoints from being able to see checkpoint 3, meaning that in theory the North Koreans could invade, take out checkpoint 3, build up a big enemy force while using this tree as cover, and then take out the rest of the JSA. So this tree is a security issue. We got to get rid of it. Okay, so this is not a big deal whatsoever. That tree is inside the JSA. It's on the South Korean side, so it's technically in South Korea. So they send out some South Korean soldiers with some axes. They're going to go chop down this tree. That's going to be the end of it. No big deal whatsoever. Then the North Koreans show up, being dicks, and they're like, no, you're not allowed to cut this tree down because we said so. That's why. And the South Koreans were like, what? Okay, well, I'm going to go get the Americans, and then we're going to come back, and then we're all going to cut down the tree together. Bye.
So in non-military terms, what South Korea just said was, fine, I'm going to go and get me dad, and he's going to totally kick your ass.
All right, fast forward a couple weeks, August 18th, 1976. This time, a 15-man working party comprised of Americans and South Koreans show up at this tree to cut it down. And once again, the North Koreans show up almost immediately. This time, there's 11 of them, and they are being led by an officer nicknamed the Bulldog because he is well known and has a reputation for starting shit inside the JSA and instigating a bunch of fights. He then proceeds to tell the Americans that they have to stop trimming that tree because that particular poplar tree was planted by none other than Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea. To which the Americans, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but they were like, oh really, did he planted this tree? Kim Il-sung, the same guy that you guys think invented the hamburger and the burrito, and the first time he golfed a 38 under par with 11 hole-in-ones, and his body's so efficient that he doesn't have to use the bathroom because he doesn't generate waste. That guy, he planted this tree. I don't give a shit. So they turned around and kept cutting down this tree. So at this point, Officer Bulldog sends a runner across the bridge of no return into North Korea. A couple minutes later, 2 trucks show up with 30 more North Korean soldiers, and they all get out with clubs. At this point, Officer Bulldog tells the working party again, stop cutting down the tree or else. And the working party, under the impression they're not actually going to do anything, ignores them and just keeps cutting down the tree, at which point Officer Bulldog famously takes off his watch, wraps it in a handkerchief, sets it down, and yells, "Chukyo," meaning kill in North Korean, at which point all of the soldiers attacked the members of the working party. Every member of the working party was injured and 2 Americans were killed.
Oh, hey, I don't swear on this channel very often, but you know what? That was some of the dumbest shit you can do.
Even though
you're gonna kill 2 American military personnel, right? Over a tree? You understand that these guys spend hundreds of billions just to retrieve 1 person back that's alive. Yo, I did not know people died in this. Like, yeah, you got messed up now, bro. Hey, your leader might not have a butthole, but he certainly needs to change his underwear once he finds out about this.
Shit has officially hit the fan. The entire U.S. military is put on DEFCON 3, which is the highest level of readiness that the military can go to without actually being at war. The president and the Joint Chiefs of Staff are dragged into the bunker underneath the White House to begin getting briefed by the CIA, and North Korea is shitting its pants because a couple of their guys just may have kicked off World War III. Within 4 hours, the North Koreans issue a public statement trying to pin the entire thing on America, saying the Americans that were there instigated the entire thing, and it's their fault. Then North Korean leadership goes before the Non-Aligned Nations Committee, which for the purposes of this story, just think of it as like not NATO, here's the Non-Aligned Nations. You get the idea. They then try to pass a resolution that says they should all condemn America for our violent actions, and America needs to leave the Korean Peninsula altogether, and somehow this passes. At which point America basically looks over and says, that's nice that you guys passed a little rule, go ahead and try to enforce it, I dare you.
I don't even need to say anything. That's gangster. Like almost half of the world, and you're like, yeah, go right ahead. Try me. Yo.
Whatever you're thinking, you better think again. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to head down there, and I will rain down on a godly fucking firestorm upon you. You're gonna have to call the fucking United Nations. I am talking scorched earth, motherfucker. I will massacre you.
I will massacre you.
Fuck you up.
That Tropic Thunder clip was just absolute perfect timing for this situation.
Meanwhile, inside the president's bunker, all kinds of crazy ideas are getting thrown around, some of which include bombarding the entire DMZ with artillery fire, using Navy SEALs and precision-guided munitions to take out the North Korean barracks inside of the JSA, essentially killing all the North Koreans that had anything to do with this, destroying the Bridge of No Return, and my personal favorite, just dropping a nuclear bomb off the coast of North Korea just to prove a point. At this point, the president chimes in and he's like, no, this has to be an appropriate response. We don't want to overkill this situation and kick off World War III. So that begs the question, what is an appropriate response to the president? Well, that depends on the president, and the president at this particular time was none other than Gerald Ford. You see, that's absolutely terrifying, and most of you have no idea why, because Gerald Ford doesn't have much brand recognition in modern times, so let me fill you in. Gerald Ford played college football at the University of Michigan and had offers to go to the NFL from the Lions and the Green Bay Packers, and turned both of them down because he wanted to be a boxing coach at Yale before he went into law school to become a politician. Somewhere along the way, this guy becomes friends with Richard Nixon. Fast forward, he's ready to retire. His friend Richard Nixon is the president of the United States, and Richard Nixon's vice president, Spiro Agnew, gets accused of taking bribes and has to step down as vice president. At which point, Nixon calls up his old buddy and is like, hey, will you fill in as VP for me? So Gerald Ford, not wanting to let down his buddy, is like, sure, absolutely, I'll come be the vice president. So he serves as VP for a little bit, and then Watergate happens, Richard Nixon gets impeached, and Gerald Ford becomes the 38th president of the United States and the only president in American history that was never elected as VP or the president.
So that's your guy's only one who was never elected and somehow ended up president just because of some unfortunate circumstances. Well, I googled the same thing, only for England, and we've had 15 in the same amount of time. 15 who were never elected by anybody. And yet somehow they managed to get into power. Oh, and I just want to add this in there. They all went to the same private school called Eton. Don't know what that has to do with anything, but hey, it's a thing.
And the first thing he does as president is he gives a presidential pardon to his buddy, Richard Nixon, who just got impeached, so he can't go to prison. And this pisses off absolutely everybody. Left, right, middle, doesn't matter. Everybody is furious with Gerald Ford over this. There is a 0% chance that he is ever going to get reelected right out of the gate. All right, so just so we're on the same page, President Gerald Ford, your traditional football playing, boxing, manly man that didn't want the job as president in the first place and has zero hopes of ever getting reelected, as well as having a history of being willing to sacrifice his personal image and the future of his career just to help out the homies, and we're going to find out what this man deems as an appropriate response. But one thing's for certain, and it is that poplar tree is absolutely coming down. Fast forward 3 days later, August 21st, 7 a.m., a bunch of American and South Korean vehicles roll into the JSA, and Operation Paul Bunyan would officially begin.
You guys called it Operation Paul Bunyan. Like, so in Google it says Paul Bunyan is a legendary giant lumberjack and folk hero in North American folklore. Who picks the names of the missions? Because whoever it is, they need like a special award or at least a good job sticker.
Inside of those vehicles, there is a 16-man tree trimming crew, and they are being escorted by 2 platoons of American grunts, roughly 60 guys, all carrying axe handles and pistols, ready to teach the North Koreans a lesson if they decide they want to try to stop them again. Now, is there supposed to be 60 guys in the JSA carrying firearms? No, but they're just carrying pistols. It's the smallest gun Uncle Sam has to offer because America is trying very, very hard to be appropriate. Also, they brought a tank, which as you can see is basically a really small tank with a snowplow on the front and an enormous gun.
That's huge.
It's average, okay?
That's pretty pathetic.
Even if it is a little
She
bit on the
just
smaller
roasts
side of
him
average.
all the time.
A grain of rice can tip the scale.
And if that wasn't enough, they're also being backed up by 64 Black Berets, the South Korean Special Forces guys, one of which would actually go on to be the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in. Okay, here's the deal with the Black Berets. As a minimum requirement, every single one of them has to be a black belt in Taekwondo, and I know what you're thinking. My nephew got a black belt in Taekwondo from the YMCA when he was like 13 years old. Big deal, okay? I realize it's the same word. Trust me, it's not the same thing. These guys could kick the shit out of your nephew.
Kick the shit out of your nephew. There's a sentence.
And the best part of all is the Taekwondo's not even going to come into play because as all the vehicles pull up, the 16-man tree trimming crew runs out, they start cutting down the tree, the Americans get out with their pistols and their axe handles, the South Koreans pull up, they get out, and they start unstrapping something from the bottom of their vehicles. Against the orders of their president, they had all snuck in M16s, grenade launchers, crew-served weapons, anti-tank weapons, and some of them even had claymores strapped to their chest.
Okay, I don't think that was the agreement.
The South Korean Special Forces has officially come to party. At this point, they're looking over at the Americans like, really? You guys brought axe handles and pistols? What are you doing, playing fucking Jenga? At this point, the Americans are like, hey, I appreciate the effort. You guys are awesome. That's great. But here's the deal. The only thing better than breaking the rules and getting away with it is not having to break the rules and still getting away with it. AKA, you just got to find that loophole and make them make new rules later because they didn't know that was an option. You see, they told us we can't have guns in the JSA. They didn't say anything about...
Okay, this is where we're about to find out the loophole that America has found, created, or just went for it anyway.
above the JSA. Because circling overhead, there is 20 Huey utility helicopters, and on those helicopters is an entire company of American infantry, roughly 120 19-year-old athletic alcoholics with machine guns, and as soon as those helicopters touch down, they are ready to get out and start kicking ass. But here's the deal with that. It wouldn't be appropriate to send out a bunch of utility helicopters without a security escort, so they're being accompanied by 7 Cobra attack helicopters.
Why
and
not?
just in case that's not enough, above that, there is somewhere between 12 and 20 B-52 Stratofortresses that just got in from Guam that are now doing hot laps around the entire demilitarized zone, each of which is carrying like 70,000 pounds worth of bombs, some of which were allegedly nuclear warheads. In addition to that, there's an entire fighter squadron of American F-4 Phantoms that just got in from Okinawa, and a bunch of South Korean F-5s, as well as a bunch of American F-111s that just got in from Idaho. In addition to that, there's roughly 10,000 troops on standby just inside the South Korean border, ready to run in if they're needed, and on top of that, there's another 12,000 troops already en route to South Korea, just in case. Oh, and now the USS Midway, a fucking aircraft carrier, and her entire security detail are parked off the North Korean coast.
Talk about overkill. Like, they thought they were great just because they pulled a couple of like machine guns from underneath the truck and the Americans only had a handgun. Like, it turns out Americans didn't need the handgun, okay? Because if you just look up, you'll be able to realize that the greatest military power in the world has got your back right now. Like, I would walk in there with nothing but an axe to cut down the tree and still feel safe. Like, what are you going to do now? As a country, if you see this happening on your border over a tree, like, what are you going to do now? There's nothing you can do. Like, there's nothing you... That is the most overkill thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, full send. Hundreds upon hundreds of billions spent just to show of force. Like, that is literally it. You are not going to get away with this. You took 2 Americans out. Biggest mistake of your entire life. Now, now this is the bit where your country has an option. They either go down fighting, okay, and when I say go down, I mean go down, right? Or you just completely back up and say, hey, you guys win this one. You guys win this one. Hey, that is the most overkill ever. But hey, it's America. You don't do things by half measures, all right? Full send. Damn, man. Wow.
And all of this was done in the span of 3 days. America has probably just conducted the greatest showing of force ever and turned this poplar tree into the largest game of fuck around and find out in human history. Cut back to the men on the ground. Operation Paul Bunyan has been going on for approximately 5 minutes. The 5 longest minutes in human history of an entire army watching 16 dudes trim a tree and not a single sign of a North Korean anywhere. Which is really weird. Normally they would have been here by now. What is going on?
Oh, so now they're not turning up. Gee, I wonder why. You just like brought the greatest military power, the biggest show of force ever. Somehow miraculously they're just not there. I wonder why.
At this point, the American leadership comes to the realization that the North Koreans know exactly what's going on. There's a 0% chance that they don't, and they have decided that their best option is to not show up at all, and then later on, they're going to play it off like they had no idea the entire thing actually happened, making it appear as though America's show of force was not that big of a deal. At this point, the American leadership takes a deep breath, and they're like, okay, we have to keep this appropriate. We're the bigger people in this. That's a great PR move by the North Koreans. Doesn't matter. We know what we did. We know what we accomplished, and that should be enough. I'm just kidding. The American leadership immediately sent a transmission to the North Koreans telling them that they were there for, and I quote, to finish the work left unfinished.
You guys literally sent them a message to say, hey, we're busy roasting you right now, and there's nothing you can do about it. Hey man, that's so gangster, man. It's so gangster. You're not going to let them get away making a story or a narrative or anything like that. You are genuinely like, hey, world, look at this. No one can stop us. Like, hey, that's cool, man.
Now, the North Korean frontline communications just go absolutely nuts. We know this because American intelligence was monitoring their frontline communications, and one of the intel analysts that was listening said, and I quote, this move blew their fucking minds. At this point, the North Koreans are absolutely terrified, but they have to do something because they've got way too much pride not to. So, all of the North Korean troops in the immediate area are ordered to go to the Bridge of No Return. Within a matter of minutes, a bunch of trucks pull up on the other side of the Bridge of No Return, and 150 North Korean soldiers get out, and they proceed to stand there and watch silently for what I presume to be the longest 35 minutes of their entire lives.
There ain't no way that wasn't the longest 35 minutes of their entire life. Do you understand all of the things? Did you see how long it took him to list everything that was flying above, or the battleships on? Yeah. Oh, I'll send 100 troops to watch the bridge. It's not even close, man. It's not even close. Like, you couldn't do anything even if you want to. You literally just sent 100 people there just to be a crowd. Like, they might as well have just started clapping for the Americans. Like, hey, you're doing a good job for the tree. Would you like a hand? I'll help you if you like.
As they watch the Americans finish cutting down this tree. And that's pretty much it. The Americans finished trimming this tree. They left a big-ass stump there, so the North Koreans never, ever forgot about it.
Forget
and then
it.
once that stump rotted away, they put a plaque there in honor of the 2 soldiers that lost their lives, Lieutenant Mark Barrett and Captain Arthur Boniface.
Respect.
North Korea was then also ordered to pay reparations to their family members. In addition to that, the North Koreans issued a statement saying the entire situation was regrettable, which according to the experts is the closest thing to an apology that you will ever get out of the North Koreans. And then, to absolutely everybody's surprise, on August 25th, the North Koreans come back to the negotiating table, and they're like, hey, remember that idea you guys have had for like the last 20 years where you wanted to split the JSA in half to separate North and South Korean forces so a bunch of dumb shit didn't happen?
You changed your mind now.
We'd finally like to do that. So yeah, in conclusion, I guess this has been the story about how World War III almost got started by a tree. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at the
How's the tree doing nowadays? Yeah, I'll go and order some of this guy's stuff. He deserves it, man. The work he puts in.
These military operation ones keep getting weirder and weirder. I should probably talk about that time that America accidentally turned a manhole cover into the fastest man-made object of all time.
Oh, I know that one.
It into outer space with a nuclear warhead.
I know that one. Yo. Alright, so talk about overkill. You guys went full send, all in show of force. I mean, the people on the ground, they just had the handguns, but like, you had everything else there. That's absolutely amazing. Like, you do not do things by half measures. Like, what's the famous saying? Right? The only way to be sure you have peace is to make sure that you've got a bigger stick than the other guy. Now, I might be saying that wrong, but you get the idea, right? And you certainly showed that you got a bigger stick. And I did say stick before anyone assumes I said something else, right? But also, another random information to finish the video. It turns out in England, we have 1.5 billion trees. And there is multiple trees at the end of my street. So if you, as America, decide, you know what, maybe we want to do something else with a tree, my street, where I live, please. 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 Okay?
Okay. Make sure you like.
I can't put that in the video. Hey, it has been an absolute pleasure. This guy is an amazing storyteller.
Yeah, he is.
This guy is very talented at what he does. Please, if you're not, I think you all already are, but if you're not subscribed to this guy, go and check him out.
He's so
I highly recommend it. Please keep the recommendations coming. I'm not going to do fat electrician videos all of the time because that's his stuff and stuff like that. But I am going to do some more, hopefully.
Yeah.
There was one I seen about like Waffle House and stuff, and we don't have one of those over here on the Fat Files and stuff. I would like to watch that. There's a couple other things I would like to react to, and I have some other things coming up, and hopefully you'll enjoy them all. Thank you so much just for even being here. It has been an absolute pleasure, and again, I can't believe I hit 40,000. I don't know what my goal should ever be. That's why I only increase it by just a small amount every time, because just seeing it go up by one is amazing. So thank you so very much. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend and enjoying your week. Much love and God bless to all of you. Thank you so much for being here.
All right. Now.
Welcome to Where Fur Meets Funny. Today we're counting down nature's funniest animals. Let's dive in. What a fashion dilemma when you can't decide which style you're on for today. Turns out all kids love seesaws.
You ought to see the goats in
Хороший, добрый человек, адекватный, который готов взять себе животное домой.
This engineering problem requires a degree he simply does not have.
I see now.
Best friending so hard you pretend to get knocked out by their muscles.
Sully, where are you taking it? Where are you taking that? No, you're not taking your food outside. No.
Eat outside, man.
Not outside. Put it down. Thank you.
He thinks he is in the Olympics, but the ball has other plans. Is the monkey the culprit, or just a weird cleaner?
When I was walking on the...
You can watch that one. I'm going to switch it up now, and we're going to go and take off from where we were because this story is so interesting.
Gary, not picking up what I'm putting down. I'm trying to tell you it's not only possible for Bazooka
here.
He would write, and I quote, "Life is far crueler than death, and nations are feverishly preparing to slaughter again." So he knew that World War II was coming, probably a lot sooner than most other people did, but he's one man.
I'm going to
Captain
start
of
here.
the USS Washington, or PC. But to celebrate the Navy's 250th birthday, I am now available on consoles, and you're going to unlock me, the battleship, the USS Texas with an American flag paint job, and a bunch of other freebies. And that deal is available for absolutely everybody, even if you already play, from now until November 28th, 2025. And if you're new to the game, you're going to get a bunch of extra freebies on top of that. The game is free, it's pretty easy to play, and it's one of the only games that I actually do play. You get to captain your own ship in naval warfare, being historically accurate ships like the USS Texas, the USS Iowa, or the USS Enterprise. And it's not all just American ships. You could be other historic ships from different nations. You could be the Japanese Yamato. You could be the German Bismarck. I mean, I don't know why you would. They're both at the bottom of the ocean right now, which seems like a bad strategy if you want to win, but whatever, you do you. And it's not just influencers like me that you can unlock to be the captains of your ship. You can unlock real captains from history. You can actually have Willis Ching Lee be the captain of the USS Washington or any other ship that you want. So yeah, go check out World of Warships. Use my link down below. If you use it before November 28th, you're going to unlock the battleship, the USS Texas with an American flag paint job and a bunch of other freebies. Let's get back to the video. Our story begins August 29th, 1912. Okay. Charles Carpenter is born. He is the oldest of 6 kids. He has 2 brothers and 3 sisters. He grows up in Illinois, and like pretty much every other World War II hero we talk about, he grows up dirt.
Okay. These are guys that did questionable things that had they not do those things, it would have turned out a lot different for the whole world. So this is amazing what this guy does. All right.
Poor, you guys know the drill. Unfortunately, the young Charles's dad was not that great of a guy. He had an alcohol problem, he had a gambling problem, and we don't really know how old Charles was when this happened, but in his childhood, his dad would end up losing their 1,000-acre farm in a gambling game, and he would walk out of their lives forever, abandoning his family, his wife, and all 6 kids. Now, something like that happening would absolutely destroy most people, but Charles Carpenter is the main character, and without a positive male role model in his life, he turns to books, he turns to literature, and reads all the great books he can find. And that becomes his positive male role model. That's how he learns how to be a man. And it works. He's super hardworking, he's very intelligent, does great in school, and he's a 3-sport athlete playing football, basketball, and track. Quote, "My creed, I have resolved to exert all of my efforts towards being a nobler and stronger fellow, a gentleman, a scholar, a friend, and a real man. To the best of my ability, I will ever strive for self-control, self-improvement, freedom, wisdom, courage, generosity, truth, and the true nobility before God and men. I will be better. Charles Carpenter." Okay, he wrote that at 17 years old after his dad had lost everything and abandoned him and his family. Okay, the dude knew he was the main character all along. For high school, he gets a full ride scholarship to Roosevelt Military Academy, and then after that, he gets a full ride scholarship to Center College in Kentucky, both for football and track. While he's there, he joins the Civilian Training Corps, which is kind of like an old version of ROTC, where you get to become a military officer when you do classes during college. Basically, he has to go off to 2 weeks of training every summer, all 4 years of college, and then once he graduates from college and finishes the program, he's offered a spot as a 2nd lieutenant in the Army Reserves as a pilot. So that's what he does. He goes off to college, studies history, studies philosophy, decides he wants to be a history teacher. He wants to be able to go into a classroom full of kids and find the kids that are like him and be their strong male role model that he never had. And that's what he does for years. And when he's not teaching history, he's a flight instructor. But being the history guy, he can also kind of see the future because history is the best predictor of the future. And he sees all the tensions and everything rising in Europe. And in his personal journal in the 1930s, he would write, and I quote, "Life is far crueler than death, and nations are feverishly preparing to slaughter again." So he knew that World War II was coming, probably a lot sooner than most other people did, but he's one man. He's a history teacher in Moline, Illinois. What can he do? So he just keeps living his life. He keeps teaching history in the day, keeps teaching pilots at night, and then on the weekends, he would go to the next town over to go to the dance hall to try to find a wife, a big dance hall called the Coliseum. One night at the Coliseum, he picks a lovely young lady out of the crowd. Elda, also known as Bunny, asked her to dance. They dance all night. They have a great time. She's awestruck that this perfect 10 of a man, he's got a job, he's athletic, he's handsome, is hitting on her. And at the end of the night, he asks her, "Hey, could I take you out on a real date?" And she wasn't very confident, and she panics, and she's like, I have a date with my girlfriend scheduled for that night already. So Charles Carpenter's like, "Oh, okay, I guess," and that was the end of it. Bunny spends the next weeks and months just kicking herself in her own ass for shooting down this perfect 10 of a man, and then eventually, after a couple of months, they run into each other at the Coliseum again. They dance all night, have a great time, and Charles Carpenter shoots his shot again. They go out on a date, and 3 months later, they were married. According to Bunny, and I quote, "We were so in love, we couldn't eat." Fast forward, Charles Carpenter is living the American dream. Despite his rough childhood, he's college educated, he's a high school history teacher, living his dream job, he's happily married, his wife is pregnant with their first child, and then in 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. And at essentially the same time, they also attack the Philippines, where his brother, the fighter pilot, is currently stationed, and they destroy his brother's plane in the opening attack. His brother's now a POW, all of his former students are getting drafted and going off to war, and he could probably get away from the draft. Being at home as a teacher is an important job. He could probably get an exemption, but that's not the man that Charles Carpenter is, so he volunteers to go off and joins the military too at 29 years old. Now, because Carpenter's already college educated, he's already an Army officer, he's already a flight instructor, the Army determines they're not going to send him off into combat. They're going to send him to Miami, where he's going to be an instructor and teach other people how to be officers and how to fly planes. And while that might be a dream job to most people, being able to stay stateside, safe, healthy, happy, it's not really what Carpenter wanted, but that's what the Army told him to do, so he's going to do it to the best of his ability. So in early 1942, he gets in his car in Illinois and drives all the way to Miami, and the road trip there is absolutely crazy. Pearl Harbor just happened, and they're already rationing gasoline, they're rationing rubber for tires, volunteers. They're rationing absolutely everything. At one point, Charles picks up a hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker explains to him that he's a merchant marine and his ship had been sunk by a German U-boat, and he's trying to make his way home to his parents because his parents think that he's dead. And the entire thing is just surreal to him because he's read and studied so much history, and he realizes during this road trip that he's now living through history. So he gets to Miami, starts doing his job, and it's not his thing. I mean, he's good at it. He can train people how to do stuff. He's a teacher. He knows how to teach. He knows what he's talking about, but he just feels wrong about the fact that he's teaching somebody how to go off and fight a war when he's never gone off and fought a war himself. So he decides that's what he needs to do. The problem is he's too valuable where he's at. They're not going to let him just change his orders and go join a normal aviation unit and abandon this teaching job because he's the best man for that job. The only way he's going to get out of these teaching orders is if he volunteers for something so dangerous that it's a volunteer-only basis, and he does exactly that. He volunteers to be a glider pilot. Okay, what is a glider? They were used on D-Day. They're a really big deal. Not a lot of people have heard about them. It's basically a giant kite that's shaped like a plane. I know what you're thinking. Why on earth wouldn't you just, I don't know, fly another plane into combat? Why are you going to tow a plane-sized kite behind you? Well, you gotta remember it's World War II. Raw materials are scarce. They're rationing everything. We can't make planes fast enough. We need more planes. More planes isn't an option. So this is the next best thing, to make a giant kite-shaped plane and tow it behind a C-47 into combat and then cut the ropes, and they're going to glide into the battlefield and have a controlled crash landing. And I think we can all agree, pretty crazy proposition for a military job. So obviously not a ton of volunteers. So when Charles Carpenter does volunteer, he gets accepted pretty much immediately. He gets shipped off into the glider training pipeline. First they send him to Tennessee, then they send him to Arkansas, then they send him to South Carolina. He's literally flying a giant kite. They're cutting the ropes, and he's practicing his crash landings over and over and over again. And this goes on for months and months and months. And you gotta remember, Charles Carpenter is a historian. He's always thinking the big picture. He's always known that these gliders were a bandage fix. They were just something that had to be done. They were not the ideal scenario. On top of that, they also have a very specific niche application of when and if these are ever gonna be used. So he kind of starts to feel like maybe he's wasting his time, because the longer this goes on, the more planes America is building, and maybe they're not going to have to use these gliders at all, and maybe he's just wasting his time. And then one day on the bulletin board, there's another list for volunteers for a different crazy flight program called a liaison pilot. Now, conceptually, this job is nothing new. It's basically recon. It's just get up really high, be able to spot the enemy, report what the enemy's doing back to your chain of command. Back in the day, you'd send scouts up on the high ground. Back in World War I, you had hot air balloons, and now in World War II, they're going to have liaison pilots. Why is that dangerous? Because they're flying an L4 Grasshopper, okay, which is literally just a J3 Piper Cub, which is like the most mass-produced trainer plane at this point in time. Like if you were a pilot, you first learned how to fly a plane on a J3 Piper Cub. It's literally the Model T of airplanes. It's got fabric wings, like an 80 horsepower engine, and its top speed is like 85 miles an hour. It's basically a paper mache plane with a lawnmower blade sticking out of the front. And not only is it slow, it has no offensive or defensive capabilities. It can't engage the enemy, and it can't defend itself when it gets engaged. So literally, you're just going up in the air, getting eyes on the enemy, and hoping they decide not to shoot at you. And the reason the Army wants to use this feeble aircraft is because it's super easy to fly on, and you can land it in a random field. You don't need a runway, and you can take off and land in like 300 feet, which is actually where it got the name the L4 Grasshopper, because it's literally just a J3 Piper Cub, but the Army's got to give it a different name. And when the J3 Piper Cub was going through military testing, they were landing it in random fields, and this green little plane would hit the ground and skip and skid to a halt, and one of the generals said, it looks like a damn grasshopper, and that's how it got the name the L4 Grasshopper. So these liaison pilots are going to be operating like a mile behind the front line, taking off from a random field, loitering over the battlefield for hours, calling in artillery, and reporting back enemy troop movements to their chain of command. Basically, liaison pilots in the L4 Grasshopper is the world's first version of a recon drone, except for, you know, the whole point of a drone is you can go do dangerous shit and not put your men in harm's way, but that's not really an option here. And Charles Carpenter is like, sounds great, whatever gets me into the battle, sign me up. And I mean, to be fair, he had already volunteered to crash land a giant kite with no engine, so now he's flying what amounts to a kite with an engine, so I guess it is an upgrade. From here, he gets shipped off to Texas to learn how to fly the L4 Grasshopper, which he already knows how to do because he's been a pilot instructor forever, passes that with flying colors, then they send him off to Fort Sill, home of the artillery, where he gets to learn how to call in artillery while he's inside of his plane. Okay, in timeout, because I need you guys to understand how insane this job is. I don't want you to think I'm pumping up flying a crop duster like it's some incredible job, because I know it's not as glamorous or as glorious as being a fighter pilot. This job is fucking nuts. Okay, A, he's alone, almost always. The plane literally isn't big enough to carry two people in it and be fast enough to not get shot at. So he is alone inside of a plane. Inside of the plane, it is his job, while 2,000 feet above the ground, traveling 85 miles an hour in a noisy-ass cockpit, being propelled by a lawnmower blade, to be able to look down, spot the enemy, and call in artillery, okay? And you're thinking like, oh, you just pick up the phone and say, send the artillery. No, he has to be able to figure out, while moving in one direction, where the enemy is on the grid, like get their coordinates, and then call that in relation to him as he's moving, and the enemy's also potentially moving as well. And he's trying to do math and trajectory problems while flying a fucking plane. The entire job is literally fly a plane, hope to God you don't get shot down, and while you're flying the plane, have the world's shittiest math quiz, and if you fail, you or your buddies die. So is being a liaison pilot as glamorous as being being a fighter pilot? No, absolutely not. But I would argue that they have way bigger balls. I mean, as an outsider looking in, which job would you rather have? Option A, you could be a fighter pilot, basically take up what amounts to a hot rod covered in machine guns and zip around the battlefield shooting at the enemy. Or B, you could take up your grandpa's crop duster, traveling at the speed of smell with no weapons to fire at the enemy or defend yourself, and the entire time that you're loitering over the battlefield hoping you don't get shot down, you're doing Sudoku puzzles with life or death consequences for you and your buddies. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to articulate to you that liaison pilots are highly underrated. These are quite literally Iron Men flying paper planes. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Charles Carpenter completes his training, gets his L-wings, officially becoming a liaison pilot. From here, he gets assigned to the 4th Armored Division in Patton's 3rd Army. So he goes out with the 4th Armored Division. They're training out in the deserts of California, getting ready to go into theater, and very quickly he becomes the top liaison pilot in the entire 4th Armored Division. He is essentially now the man in charge of all the other liaison pilots. Both because he's extremely capable, but also because he's like in his early 30s at this point in time. He's an older dude by standards. He's more mature, he's a teacher, he's college educated, he's just the right guy for the job. Because of this, he essentially becomes the personal pilot for the general of the 4th Armored Division, John Shirley Wood, a man who's described as being broad in the shoulders and even broader in the waist. And remember, the L4 Grasshopper, not really meant to have 2 people inside of it, and the general is a big boy. Charles Carpenter, also a pretty big guy. They are way overweight when he's flying this general around. So not only does he get used to flying a over-encumbered L4 Grasshopper, but he also ends up becoming really good friends with the general, again, because he's one of the only older guys around. Everybody else is a 19-year-old kid. He's super well read. The general's probably super well read. They become homies. And both of these things are going to save his ass later on. Early 1944, Charles Carpenter and the rest of the 4th Armored Division head off to Great Britain. They're training there, they're getting ready. That goes on for a couple of months. D-Day happens in June of 1944, and by July of 1944, Charles Carpenter and the rest of the 4th Armored Division go into France. Right out of the gate, he's doing his job exactly how he's supposed to. He's going up, he's doing recon, he's calling in artillery, he's being the personal pilot for the general whenever he needs it, and this goes on for a couple of weeks, and the entire time, every mission, it starts to eat at him more and more. He feels like he's not doing enough. He's not going out there and confronting the enemy. He's just loitering above the battlefield. He's cutting himself and his contribution short. And then he gets his chance to confront the enemy in person on August 1st, 1944, outside of a French town known as Avranches. I want to be clear, we don't know the exact context of how this unfolded, but we do know that he was in a Jeep by himself, conducting forward reconnaissance, looking for an empty field to land his plane and all the other L4 Grasshoppers. Now, the fact that he's going out by himself in a Jeep to look for a place to land his Grasshoppers closer to the front line tells me that he's probably been up in the sky conducting reconnaissance and come to the conclusion that there's no Germans in the area, so they're going to move forward. That's just where my head is at, and probably his too. While he's in his Jeep looking for a new operational base for all of his L4 Grasshoppers, he comes up on a bunch of American tanks and American infantry, and they are in a firefight with the Germans. So he hops out of the Jeep, runs up to some of the infantry, asks what's going on. They're telling him there's a ton of Germans in the area. They're pinned down. They can't punch through into this town. And this is where I'm inferring something. I'm assuming he knows that that's bullshit. That's not a possibility. He's probably been up in the air conducting recon for days. He knows that there's no massive German element here, so he thinks that this is just some kind of German trick or some last stand. But what we know for sure is that he then proceeds to run up to the nearest Sherman tank, whose commander isn't there for one reason or another, hops in the turret with the 50 cal, and yells down to the crew, "Let's go." He's an officer, they're lower enlisted, they listen to him. They drive straight into the Germans, firing the 75mm cannon on this Sherman with the other tanks and infantry following behind him, and they start clearing the town block by block, and every time they round a corner, he yells down to the crew, "Let it go," and they fire another round, forcing the Germans to retreat further, block after block, slowly clearing this entire town. As they round the last corner on the last block in this town, they're about to take the entire thing. Through the smoke and chaos of the battle, he sees a tank, and he yells down to the crew, "Let it go," and as soon as the words leave his mouth, he sees through the smoke that it's another Sherman tank. He has a gut-wrenching "oh shit" moment as time slows down, and before he can say a word, the gun fires. And he watches in slow motion as his tank fires on another American Sherman tank that's got a bulldozer blade attached to the front of it. And thank God the shell only hits the bulldozer blade, blows it off the tank, and nobody's hurt.
Guess what? What? Fuck you! Fuck you!
So that's great news. Nobody got hurt. Also great news, he just helped break through the German lines by leading this massive offensive into a French town. Bad news, the other tank commander who just got his bulldozer blade shot off crawls out of his tank and starts walking over to Carpenter's tank, rightfully furious and pissed off. And when he gets there, he's expecting to chew out, I don't know, another tank commander. And what he finds is a liaison pilot that's not even in this unit, that's not supposed to be there, that just commanded one of his tanks to shoot at his tank.
It's only my third day out here. I don't know.
So he goes from being furious to absolutely mega pissed, and to be fair, he's kind of justified. He immediately orders Charles Carpenter get arrested and says that he's going to do everything he can to make sure he faces a firing squad for fratricide. Luckily, his homie, General Shirley Wood, finds out that his pilot and buddy has been arrested. He goes, springs him out of jail, but it's the wrong chain of command, and he doesn't have enough sway to be able to get rid of the potential court-martial that Charles Carpenter is now facing. So, at the very least, he's not going to be facing the firing squad, but he's still potentially looking at getting dishonorably discharged from the military. So, General Shirley Wood takes the case to the next tier higher, somebody that can resolve this issue, his buddy from West Point, General Patton.
Somebody closer.
General Patton hears about what happened. He says something along the lines of, and I quote, "That's the type of fighting man I want in my army," and gets rid of the court-martial and wipes his slate clean altogether. Now that part we know happened for sure, but I also believe that this is the point where Charles Carpenter was not only given a second chance, but I believe Patton also gave him the Bronze Star with V device and promoted him to Major at this point as well.
See, now that's some bullshit.
Unfortunately, I can't present that to you as 100% fact because I cannot find any of his medal citations or promotions anywhere in the National Archives. I'm assuming he's in that 80% majority that lost all their personnel records in the fire in 1973. But I believe at this point, Patton did award him the Bronze Star with V device and promote him to Major, which is absolutely on brand for General Patton. All right, so had a little oopsies, everything worked out all right, he's back in the saddle, he's not in trouble, he's going out on missions, everything's back to normal. And then there's a rumor going around in the liaison pilot community that apparently somebody somewhere on the Western Front mounted a bazooka onto the wing of their L4 Grasshopper, fired it, and the plane didn't blow up, it didn't catch the wing on fire, it worked out. Okay, now bear in mind, this is a rumor. This is 15 degrees removed. Some guy told another guy that apparently this happened. But when Charles Carpenter hears that it happened, he's like, I'm fucking doing it. So he goes to his chain of command, asks permission, is like, hey, I heard this was possible, I want to give it a try. His chain of command, being cool as shit, is like, look, I'm not saying you're allowed to do that. I'm also not saying that if you did, I'm gonna stop you, which he takes as a green light, and he does it. Okay, bear in mind, this is a rumor. He heard from a guy who heard from a guy that this is theoretically possible, and he's gonna go out there and actually figure out how to do it. There's no YouTube tutorial, there's no how-to, there's no pictures of how it was done. He's just gonna go out there and figure out how to mount a bazooka onto his plane. Which, to be fair, doesn't sound like it would be that complicated until you actually start to think about the fact that this is borderline approaching rocket science, right? I mean, you can't just be strapping big, heavy metal tubes onto the wings of aircrafts and expect it to not interfere with, I don't know, aerodynamics, weight distribution, all the shit that goes into, I don't know, keeping a plane in the fucking sky.
That's simply not possible. Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not, you stupid bastard?
And if you don't believe me, go make a paper airplane, throw it across the room, watch it go, and then pick it up, strap some weights to each wing, and throw it again and see how different it flies.
Oh man, it slipped out of my hand. What a whip.
Regardless, he's a smart guy. He figures it out. You can't literally mount the bazooka on the wing because they're fabric wings, so he mounts it on the wing strut, and then he mounts it so that the actual weight of the bazooka with the shell is behind the rear tires and behind the pilot, because the center of gravity on these Piper Cub planes is actually behind the pilot already, so he's using his own body weight to counteract the weight of these bazookas.
Yes, science.
So he ends up mounting one bazooka on each side of the plane, does a test run, it flies okay. Then he runs electrical wires into the cockpit on a panel where he can fire each bazooka individually or both at once. Goes up on a test run, fires the bazookas, doesn't light the wings on fire, doesn't blow them out of the sky. He's actually able to semi-accurately shoot these bazookas. He lands, and it's like the holy shit, that actually worked, at which point he has a wonderful idea. You know what's better than 2 bazookas?
Double it.
That's right, 4 bazookas. So he mounts 4 bazookas on his plane, goes up, does a test run, it works, comes back down, lands. You know what's better than 4 bazookas? 6 bazookas. Goes up, does a test run, it works again, comes back down, and lands. You know what's better than 6 bazookas on an L4 Grasshopper?
Here I come.
An L4 Grasshopper with 6 bazookas and a dope-ass paint job where he names his plane Rosie the Rocketer after Rosie the Riveter. From here, he takes his Brunson Crafts project into combat. From here, things get a little bit fuzzy because, again, a lot of the documentation was probably lost in a fire in 1973, and there probably wasn't a lot of great documentation taken at the time to begin with because, again, he's a one-man show. If there's not a witness to verify whatever he said happened, they can't really prove it. They can't officially say that it happened. But what we do know is outside of Sens, France, there was some German tanks and some German armored cars that were now apparently on fire and blown up. We don't know if they were from his bazookas or from him calling in artillery or a combination of the two. I like to think it was a combination of the two. So Charles Carpenter, after presumably destroying a German convoy by himself and or with the help of artillery, decides, you know what, I'm gonna go land my plane in a field next to this burning convoy and inspect it and see what happened. I wanna see how good these bazookas are performing. So that's what he does. Lands his plane in the field, grabs a gun, goes out there to inspect it, finds 6 surviving Germans and takes all 6 of them as prisoner, and then proceeds to put bullets in the engine blocks of all the remaining vehicles that weren't burning yet. Okay, do you understand how ridiculous and gangster this is from the German perspective? Okay, because at this point in time, the German ideology was, if you see an American spotter plane, if you see a Grasshopper up in the sky, they don't have guns, they can't really hurt us, they can just call in artillery and have that rain down on our heads. So the strategy for them at the time was, if you see it, hide from it, don't shoot at it and give away your position, because he's gonna call in artillery. Best case scenario, you shoot down a $2,000 plane and take out one guy, and he dumps artillery on your entire unit. It's a bad trade, so usually they just ignore him. So these Germans are sitting there in this convoy and they're like, it's just a spotter plane, ignore it. Oh, it's getting pretty close. Oh shit, it's diving on us, and then it starts shooting bazookas at you and calling in artillery, destroys your entire convoy. Then the pilot proceeds to land in the field next to you and get out of the plane like dad coming home from work and capture you as prisoner. From here, word spreads like wildfire. There's some crazy ass major out there somewhere on the Western Front flying a crop duster around shooting bazookas at Germans. From here, people start calling him the Mad Major, Bazooka Charlie, and he pretty much gets told, I mean, do whatever you want. You can call in artillery, you can shoot bazookas at people. Remember, he's good buddies with the top general. He's the only guy doing this. It seems to be effective. Why get in his way? Let him keep blowing up Germans. Germans. Everything works out. So that's what he's doing. He's just going up in the air, calling on artillery when he sees fit, shooting bazookas when he sees fit. Everything's going great. And during this time, he really refines the method, okay? He kind of figures out as close as you can how to accurately aim these bazookas. I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically a giant bottle rocket. The bazooka is going to do what the bazooka wants to do, but he kind of gets a feel for where they usually go on average. He's got markings on his windshield inside the cockpit for where the bazooka should land. On top of that, he refines how he does his attack runs. He comes in at like 800 feet, does this corkscrew maneuver, goes down, drops to 300 feet, levels out, fires his bazookas, and then dives straight up, literally pulling G's in a fabric plane. And again, at this point in time, we have no idea how many other missions he ran, how many trucks or armored vehicles or tanks that he took out. On top of that, even if he did take out tanks, not many people would believe him. And that's because at this point in time, bazookas weren't very successful against German tanks. German armor was incredibly thick, and a bazooka, more often than not, even if you scored a direct hit, was not going to penetrate the front or side armor of a German Panther or a German Tiger tank. But what most people didn't realize at the time, he's not shooting at a German Tiger tank from the front or the side, he's shooting at it from the top, like an early version of a Javelin missile, literally hitting the tank at its weakest possible point, because no engineer could have ever foreseen, what if somebody was flying above you with a fucking bazooka? At no point in the German engineering process did any of the engineers say, yeah, but what if a crazy history teacher from Illinois in a crop duster covered in bazookas develops the pro gamer move? Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you it's not only possible for Bazooka Charlie to take out a German tank with his crop duster, it's probable. The only problem is it's one of those things you're going to have to see to believe, and he's a one-man show, so nobody's seen it but him. Yet. All right, September 19th, 1944, the Battle of Ericourt, right outside of Nancy, France. It is the largest armored battle on the Western Front in all of World War II. The Germans have approximately 262 tanks and armored vehicles, and the Americans have approximately 140 Sherman tanks. The Germans have the upper hand, but per usual, the Americans have air superiority. Problem, it's foggy as shit and the planes can't fly. Regardless, Charles Carpenter goes up anyways. Under the cover of the fog, the Germans start advancing, and after about an hour of loitering over the battlefield, Charles Carpenter finds a break in the fog, and what he sees is a German column advancing, and there's 6 soldiers pinned down at this watering point. It's the only place to get fresh water, and they were filling up water tanks for the rest of the unit. Bazooka Charlie sees what's unfolding, immediately takes action, goes into his corkscrew, dives down on the first tank, fires his first 2 bazookas. Both of them are a miss. Pulls up, circles back around, does his corkscrew maneuver again, dives again, fires 2 bazookas, hits the lead tank. The crew has to bail out. And the 6 guys that were getting water are watching this entire thing unfold, and they are the first people to ever see Bazooka Charlie take out an enemy tank with a bazooka strapped to a crop duster, something that nobody would have thought was possible.
Holy fucking shit.
And Bazooka Charlie's still got 2 more bazookas fresh in the tank, pulls up again, circles back around, does his corkscrew again, dives on another tank, scores a direct hit. The Germans have no fucking idea what's going on. There's just a tiny little plane spawning out of the fog, taking out all of their tanks. They think it's some type of new weapon or an ambush or something crazy is going on, so they panic and retreat. The water crew escapes unscathed. They later confirm that he did in fact take out 2 enemy tanks, giving him his first 2 confirmed tank kills. He then flies back to base, has his ground crew reload the bazookas, and goes back up, fires all 6 bazookas again, goes back, reloads the bazookas again, goes back up, fires them all again. He fired no less than 16 bazooka rounds that day. Bear in mind, again, we have no idea how successful he was overall because he's a one-man show and he had to have witnesses to confirm stuff, but by the end of the day, he had ground confirmation from multiple other people that he had for sure destroyed 2 German Panther tanks, 2 armored vehicles, and at least 12 ground troops. But his impact on the overall battle was so much bigger than that because, again, the fog cover was preventing America from having air superiority, meaning that the Germans had a humongous upper hand. But Charles Carpenter going out in the fog, preventing them from advancing, throwing the Germans off their game, kept them on their heels long enough for the fog to lift, and by the time they realized what the fuck was going on, and it was one crazy guy in a crop duster, America had regained air superiority and flipped the entire battle on its head. By the end of the Battle of Ericourt, America had lost 30 tanks. The Germans had lost over 200 tanks and armored vehicles. After the Battle of Ericourt, the legend of Bazooka Charlie goes from being a legend within the ranks of Patton's Third Army to being a legend back home. He is in newspaper articles absolutely all over the place. Personally, he doesn't really care for the attention. He doesn't really like the notoriety. He even writes back home to his wife, Bunny, and says, hey, don't talk to the press. I don't want the attention. In an interview, he even told a reporter, and I quote, some people around here think I'm nuts, but I just believe that if we're going to fight this war, we have to get on with it 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours in a day. In addition to his newfound notoriety, he also has to deal with the fact that the Germans have caught on to his battle strategy and they have changed their tactics to to ignoring spotter planes to shooting absolutely everything they have at them all the time. Regarding that, he told a reporter, and I quote, "Word must be getting around among those to watch out for cubs with bazookas on them. Every time I show up now, they shoot everything they have. They never used to bother cubs. Bazookas must be bothering them a bit." Despite that, Bazooka Charlie goes out and continues to do Bazooka Charlie things, keeps going out on missions, keeps shooting his bazookas, keeps calling in artillery. And again, I reiterate for like the 15th time, we don't know how many enemy tanks and armored vehicles he took out during this time period because, again, he's a one-man show and everything has to have multiple eyewitnesses to be confirmed. Despite that, over the next month in October of 1944, he manages to bag 4 German tank kills confirmed, 2 of which were the German Tiger heavy tank, the baddest tank of World War II. The other 2 were allegedly Panther tanks, one of which was leading an entire column of tanks down a narrow road with ditches on either side, and Charles Carpenter dived on the lead tank, took it out, and then called in artillery and destroyed the entire column. Bazooka Charlie continues with his antics all through October, November, December, January. Again, documentation's not that great, but some accounts claim as many as 14 confirmed tank kills, as well as over 20 armored vehicles and countless enemy machine gun positions and ground troops. And somewhere along the line, he is also awarded a Silver Star and an Air Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. But by February of 1945, he's hurting. He's got this massive lump on his neck. He has no idea what it is. He's extremely fatigued and tired, and he ends up getting hospitalized with battle fatigue initially. Army doctors don't know what to make of this lump on his neck. They send him off to Paris. He gets surgery, gets this massive lump removed, and he gets told that he has Hodgkin's lymphoma. They try to give him radiation treatment, but the Hodgkin's lymphoma is so advanced that they basically tell him, you've got a year, maybe 2 years to live. He's released from the army and sent back home. From here, he's reunited with the love of his life, Bunny, and his daughter, Carol, and he figures he's got 2 years left. He might as well make the most of it. He buys an Airstream trailer, and they tour the entire American West, and he gets to see all of the country that he fought for. Fast forward early 2000s, his daughter, Carol, is now in her 60s, and it's the early days of the internet, and she gets on the internet one day, and she's reading on war forums, and she finds a thread about her dad, and it's people talking about this crazy guy named Bazooka Charlie that supposedly mounted bazookas onto a crop duster and eliminated a bunch of German tanks. But because there's such a lack of documentation and everything else, all the comments are doubting the validity of this story, and nobody believes it. So she gets in this forum, and she starts posting pictures that she has of her dad in theater, and she starts reading all of the letters that he had written back home to her mom, Bunny, and she helps validate this story, and it becomes a known fact. She then, with some help of some other people in the aviation community, goes on to write a book about it. And in one of the pictures that she has of her dad posing next to his plane, Rosie the Rocketer, you can actually read the serial number on the plane, and aviation people track down Rosie the Rocketer and find her in a museum in Austria. They buy the plane, bring it back home, and restore Rosie the Rocketer to her wartime paint job, and Carol's daughter, a graphic designer, gets to actually paint the old paint job of her grandfather on the plane. But that's not even the best part. The best part is that after Charles and Bunny and Carol got to tour the American West in their Airstream trailer, Charles felt great. So they went back home, and he still felt fine. So Charles went back to work being a history teacher, changing the world one classroom at a time, and a year went by, and he was still doing fine, and another year, and another year, and another year, and Charles lived an additional 22 years after he was given a 1-year death sentence. He would finally succumb to Hodgkin's disease in 1966 at the age of 53, which is still a premature, tragic death, but the silver lining is he got to live an additional 22 years like he was dying. And I like to think Bazooka Charlie, of all people, was able to cram a lot of life into that 22 years under those conditions, and that's the best ending I could possibly give you. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang.
Quack bang. He tells a good story. Now, this other one was about Pappy Gunn. And again, along the same lines is that there were unsurmountable odds. And in his case, Pappy Gunn, there was also rules that needed to be bent, you know? So to get the job done, he had
the plane is it's almost done. It's almost there. He's just got a few more things to refine. And while he's working, he also likes to think that somehow, if the situation required it, he would rise to the occasion and become a superhero to do so. Well, this is a story about a man that actually did that. Today we're talking about Paul Irvin Gunn, aka Pappy. General Kinney, the man in charge of the entire United States Army Air Force after his time in service, after having hundreds of thousands of men serve underneath him, wrote a book about 2 of them. One of them is about Dick Bong, America's ace of aces, the greatest fighter pilot in American history, and the other is about Pappy, a 42-year-old retired Navy carrier pilot that was working as a civilian pilot in Manila in the Philippines when the Japanese attacked. When things started going south in the Philippines, General MacArthur's staff told Pappy that they needed him to fly a bunch of very important VIPs from the Philippines all the way to Australia to safety. They told him that Manila was going to be defended and he would have time to take the VIPs to Australia, come back, pick up his family, and evacuate them as well.
Oh, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
They lied. By the time Pappy had reached Australia, he was informed that MacArthur had declared Manila an open city and it had fallen into the hands of the Japanese with zero resistance. His family was then taken and placed in an internment camp at Santo Tomas. Pappy then goes on a one-man rampage to get his family back, launching multiple rescue attempts, crash landing his plane multiple times before he comes to the conclusion he's not going to be able to do this by himself. The only way he's going to be able to get his family back is by helping America win the war. In order to do that, he steals an entire fleet of B-25 medium bombers from the Danish government, takes them back to his base, heavily modifies them by sticking 850 caliber machine guns in the nose, a feat that engineers said was impossible, creating the first predecessor for the A-10 Warthog. He then proceeds to train a bunch of other pilots how to fly these things and takes them out on missions where they wreak havoc on enemy ground troops in the Pacific. And after they've killed so many enemy soldiers that they need reinforcements and they're sending in a massive reinforcement convoy with supplies and an entire infantry division, Pappy heavily modifies the B-25s again to perfect a tactic known as skip bombing and utilizes them to destroy the entire reinforcement convoy before it ever reaches the coast, which directly leads to the liberation of the Philippines. General Kinney said that Pappy gun was more important to the war effort than any Japanese general ever could have been. So if this is true, how have you never heard of this guy? It's because General Kinney also made it illegal for journalists to write stories about him at the time because they didn't want the Japanese finding out who this guy was and how much trouble he was causing, because then they would take it out on his family in the internment camp. But since that's no longer a concern, we can talk about it right after word from our sponsor.
Delete me.
You're not my wife.
Yeah, the wife and kids unionized, so you're served.
Great. You know I'm gonna have to redo the camera angle because you have to hunch down because you're so much taller than my wife if you're replacing her, right? All right, you guys know the deal. Delete me. Online subscription model. You give them money every month. They turn around and make sure that data brokers on the internet aren't selling your personal information. What does this actually do in practice? It gets rid of your personal info, isn't just floating around the internet for anybody to be able to buy for a couple of bucks. Okay, I know what you're thinking because I thought the same thing. I don't want to give Delete Me all my personal information either. I'm trying to get my personal information off the internet. Why would I give it to an internet company? You don't really have to give them your personal information. It's honestly kind of creepy. I gave them my name and my email address, and that was it. They came back to me a couple days later and was like, is this your address or one of your previous addresses? It was. Is this your mom's full name? Uh-huh. Is that your dad's full name? Uh-huh. Are you related to this person? Did you go to this high school? They knew everything about me and knew exactly who I was just by me giving them my name and my email. All I had to do was answer a couple of yes or no questions as to whether or not that was in fact me, which it was, at which point they're like, cool, go ahead, pay for our subscription service. We'll go to all the data brokers where we found this information and force them to delete it. And as long as you keep being a paying member, they will continue to monitor all these data brokers for your personal information. And if these data brokers do acquire it again, they will force them to delete it again. In my opinion, it's definitely worth it. I've been using them since before they were paying me to talk about them, and I'm going to keep using them after they quit paying me to talk about them. If you want to give it a try, I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. Our story begins October 18th, 1899 in Quitman, Arkansas, when a young Paul Irvin Gunn is born. He is one of 9 kids. He has 5 older sisters, and he is the oldest son. At the age of 7, his dad passes away. His 5 older sisters have already married and moved out of the house, and he is at this point the oldest child. He is now the man of the house at 7 years old. From this point on, he becomes a workaholic for the rest of his life. If he's not helping his mom on the farm, he's going out, he's shining shoes in town, and then eventually he gets a job working for a mechanic in town, working on cars, where he becomes a brilliant mechanic at a very young age.
Hi, my name is Giuseppe, and I'm a 9-year-old car enthusiast.
So brilliant that by the time he's a teenager, he's actually able to take a bunch of old wrecked cars in the salvage yard behind the mechanic shop and cobble them together to make a car that he can drive for himself. And not only does this car drive, it's the fastest car anybody's ever seen. He loves it. He loves working on cars. He likes going fast. He wants to be a race car driver. And then one day he sees a plane which goes even faster than a race car. So he decides he wants to be a pilot. And the best place to do that is in the United States Navy. But he can't. He can't leave his mom. Mom needs him to help make money so that she can keep the house and the family afloat. So he can't leave her high and dry unless he can figure out a way to make a shit ton of money and leave it with mom. Then he could go off and achieve his dream. The only problem with that is the only honest legal way to make money is to work at the mill in town, and that only pays 75 cents a day. That's going to take him years to save up enough money. That's not going to work, so he decides to do it the illegal, dishonest way. He's 16 years old, he can drive his ass off, and he's got the fastest car in town, so he becomes a bootlegger for the mafia running alcohol during Prohibition.
Well, ain't y'all cute? That's my baby.
He gets paid $30 for a single run. He's making $30 in a night when most other grown men are making 75 cents a day. He winds up saving up hundreds and hundreds of dollars for his mom. After he's finally saved up what he thinks is going to be enough money, he's going to go out on one last mission. He's going to go out on one last run, and on that run, the police set up a trap and they catch him on a bridge. He gets arrested. This is going on during World War I. The draft is in place, at which point he's taken to court and he is given the options, go to the military or go to jail. And he's like, well, this is perfect. I was planning on going to the military anyways. So he goes.
This is your plan. It worked. Every step of the way.
Ships off for basic training to the Navy, does great, everything's going awesome, and then it dawns on him, you have to be an officer to be a pilot. He's enlisted. There's no way they're going to let some guy who's here to avoid jail go off and become an officer, so his dreams of becoming a pilot aren't looking that great, at which point he decides he's going to be the next closest thing he can be just to be near the planes and to do something he enjoys. He's going to become an aviation mechanic. And that's what he does for the next 6 years. He's an aviation mechanic, and he is ungodly good at it. Like, the dude is just naturally talented, mechanically inclined. He can look at something and just know how it works. And while he's doing that, he's sending a bunch of his money back home, and the only money he's spending on himself is he's going out on his his own personal time and paying civilian pilots to train him how to fly planes. During this period of time, he also meets his wife Clara, and they end up getting married. And at some point along the line, Paul, Pappy, is like, you know what? You look more like a Polly to me. He literally names his wife after himself, which is the second pilot I've covered on this channel that just randomly renamed their wives. I don't know what's going on with that, but yeah, it happens. So now he's married to Polly.
Hello, horse. I shall call you Burger.
Now, right around the time his first 6-year enlistment's about to be up, there's this big push through Congress to be able to have enlisted guys go and be pilots. And for this, Pappy's a shoo-in. He already knows how to fly planes because he's been paying civilians to teach him, and he knows the inner workings of every single plane that the U.S. Navy has. Because of this, they tell him that if he re-ups for another 6 years, they'll give him one of these pilot slots, and he can go off to flight school, so he takes it. Graduates flight school, no problem, goes off, gets attached to VF-1, one of America's first ever fighter squadrons known as the Top Hatters. This is one of, if not the best fighter squadrons America has at the time, and they are the ones that go through and basically pioneer combat aviation between World War I and World War II. These are the guys that perfected carrier landings, aircraft carrier warfare. Pappy was there for all of it. Towards the end of his time at VF-1, he's also selected as one of the pilots that goes out and searches for Amelia Earhart after she was lost. He then spends the last couple of years of his 20-year career as a flight instructor before retiring. Oh, also, during his 20-year military career, in the back half of it, he started having trouble having a bunch of cavities, and he just kept going back to the dentist to get his mouth drilled in and get these cavities filled, and eventually it was taking up too much of his time. It was taking up too much time away from the flight line, and he didn't like it. So he just goes to the Navy dentist and is like, hey, just pull all my teeth out and give me dentures. And the Navy dentist is like, absolutely not. And Pappy Gunn is like, fine. So he goes into the civilian market and has a civilian dentist pull out all of his teeth and give him dentures. Like I said, the dude is a workaholic. So Pappy retires from the Navy. Pappy and Polly move the family out to the Philippines in Manila. They've got 2 sons and 2 daughters, and they're living out in the Philippines. And Pappy is the founding member of Philippine Airlines. They've got a couple of Beech 18 planes, and they're flying people all over the area. This goes on for a couple of years. Pappy's retired. He's still flying planes. He's got his dream job. He's got his wife. He's got his kids. Because of the exchange rate between American currency and Filipino currency, they're basically very wealthy. They have servants working in the house. Things are great. He's retired. He's done. He's achieved everything. He's successful. And then World War II starts. America's not involved yet, but Pappy can see the writing on the wall. There's only so many airstrips in the Philippines, and Pappy's airline, Philippine Airlines, shares the same airstrips as the United States Air Force, and he can see that the United States Air Force is building up more planes and more troops and bringing in more supplies. They're getting ready for something, and Pappy knows that because he spent 20 years in the Navy. So he goes to his wife Polly and is like, hey, you and the kids need to go back to America. You need to go to Florida. If something happens here, we're not going to be able to hold up. Like, yeah, they're building up troops, but it's not going to be enough if the Japanese decide to attack. You need to get sent back home. Polly, his wife, absolutely refuses. She's not leaving. Okay, fine. Now, by this point, Pappy's been in the Philippines for years. Everybody in the aviation community knows who he is. He's the best pilot around. If you need a pilot to get you somewhere nobody else feels comfortable getting you, or you need to fly through a storm, Pappy's the guy you go to. And on December 7th, 1941 is one of these cases. Pappy's plane gets chartered to fly through a storm. Pappy does it, flies through the storm, no problem, lands. When he lands, he blows out a tire on his landing equipment. He's now stranded on this smaller island until he can get his tire fixed. Not a big deal. Until he hears all the radio transmissions that the Japanese have just attacked Pearl Harbor. Oh shit, he needs to get home right now. So he gets on a boat, and then he gets on a train, and then he gets on a bus. He travels for an entire day and eventually makes it home, hasn't slept in 2 days, walks through the door, absolutely furious. The family's freaking out. His kids are like between the ages of 8 and 14. He's pissed off. He's telling Polly, damn it, you should have listened to me. Now it's going to be too late to get you out. I needed you to leave. Now the Japanese are coming here to attack us next, and I'm not going to be able to get you out. But he's going to have to, so he leaves. He goes back to the airfield, Nichols Field, and he goes to where his hangar is with all of his airplanes, and he separates his planes out, sticking them in the spots that are least likely to get attacked by the Japanese, not if, but when they launch an air raid, because it's probably going to be tonight. He needs to save his planes so that he's going to be able to save his family. And at this point, Pappy's like the only one that's just ratcheted up to 11. Like everybody else is like freaked out and sad. Pappy is like the one dude around that knows that the Japanese are on their way. He served 20 years in the Navy. He knows the only reason the Japanese would attack Pearl Harbor and cripple the American Navy was so that they could attack everywhere else in the Pacific Theater with impunity, and that's exactly what they're going to do. On top of that, he also knows the atrocities that the Japanese military committed at Nanking and in China, killing and murdering innocent civilians and torturing them for fun. So he's freaking out, and he's trying to figure out how to get his family off of this island. And while this is going on, he finds out that, oh, I was correct, because the Japanese just attacked Clark Airfield, where all of the American heavy bombers are for the entire area, which was the biggest thing defending the Philippines. And the Japanese destroyed almost all of the American bomber fleet because MacArthur, even though he had time and he had warning from Pearl Harbor that the Japanese were coming, decided, now we'll just leave the bombers on the ground so the enemy can go by and drop bombs on top of fucking not moving targets on the runway. Perfect.
That shit is crazy. I really don't like that guy.
So he finishes up hiding his Beech 18s the best that he can, goes back home, has the family cover all the windows with tarps and blankets to restrict any light movement. He's freaking out because his house is only a mile away from Nichols Airfield, and from the sky, you can't tell that it's not part of the military base. It's a good chance his house is going to get hit if the Japanese attack. He has the entire family sleep in the living room. He has a game plan. He's like, okay, one of us has to be up at all times. If we hear enemy planes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out into the front yard. Our yard has this like brick wall perimeter around it. You're going to lay belly down next to that brick wall outside inside of the house with your mouth open the entire time. Daughter, like, why are we keeping our mouth open? So the shockwave from a bomb doesn't blow your eardrums out. At this point, the family's shitting their pants. They realize how serious things are getting, and everybody's panicked. Pappy, who already hasn't slept in 2 days, takes the first shift. He's up till like 2 in the morning. He's dog-ass tired, hasn't slept in 48 hours. He's about to go wake up Polly to take the next shift, and right at about 2:30, he hears planes off in the distance, and he's listening, and he's listening, and he's so experienced as a mechanic and an aviator, he doesn't recognize that plane. And if Pappy doesn't recognize it, it's not a plane that's from the Philippines, and it's not a plane that's in the U.S. arsenal. It's the Japanese. Pappy wakes the entire family up. They rush outside, and they all get to lay belly down next to the brick wall in their front yard with their mouths open and watch Nichols Field a mile away get bombed to shit. Next morning, Pappy goes and finds an apartment deep into a residential area on Manila, somewhere that's going to be far away from any military objective, so hopefully they're not going to get hit there. Moves the family into this apartment, and then immediately goes to check and see if his plane survived. Luckily, 2 of his Beech 18s made it through the bombing. But they're going to come back tonight, and they're going to hit it again. He's got to move these planes. He's thinking about where the fuck do I hide these planes and still be able to use them to take off? And he remembers that there's an abandoned airstrip from years ago right next to an old Chinese cemetery in Manila. He takes the planes, flies them to this abandoned cemetery, and then hides them in there. But now he's still got to be able to hide the airstrip because, yeah, the Japanese probably don't know about it right now just from looking at maps and stuff because it's so old and it's been abandoned. But if they're flying over doing reconnaissance, they're going to spot it eventually, and then they're going to bomb the airstrip, and then he can't take off, and then he can't use his planes. So he has to hide an entire airstrip from aerial view. So he gets a bunch of his employees from Philippine Airlines, and they work all day constructing sheds and makeshift shacks and putting them on wheels so that they can wheel them onto the airstrip and make it look like a homeless encampment or a slum and not an airstrip from an aerial view. He then heads over to the Navy office in Manila and is like, hey, are you guys calling me back into service? What do you need? What are we doing? Everybody at the Navy, nobody has any fucking clue what's going on. Everything's chaos. They basically like shrug their shoulders and like, I don't know, bro. We haven't heard anything. So then he goes to check in with the Army Air Force, and the Army Air Force is like, hey, we're confiscating every civilian plane. Everything we need, we're confiscating all of it. It's ours now. So we're going to take your Beech 18s. You can give them to us, and then you can go fend for yourself with your family in Manila, or since you're a pilot, we'll commission you right now, and you can be a United States Army Air Force pilot. And Pappy's like, fucking, I guess I'm going to be a pilot, and he gets commissioned as a captain on the spot at the age of 42, just so we're all clear, which is ancient in military standards.
Things aren't so bad. Food's a lot better. We used to boil everything. No polio's good. Internet, so helpful.
From here, Pappy's working like 18 hours a day as a pilot, doing whatever they need him to do. He's flying VIPs from island to island. He's moving supplies around in his Beech 18, whatever they need. He's working like 16 hours a day. And then when he goes home, he's working trying to figure out how to get his family off this island and how to keep them safe. One of the things he needs is an air raid shelter for his family. He can't dig one because the water table in the Philippines is so high, it'll just flood. So he steals this giant boiler, cuts it open, and then builds an air raid shelter inside of this massive boiler that'll be able to deflect shrapnel, ideally bullets and everything else, and has his army guys serving under him deliver it to the front yard of their apartment, and it's just sitting in front of their apartment. Then December 13th, 1941, Pappy's on a solo mission doing a supply run, and while he's out there, basically enemy airspace at this point, 2 Zeros get on his tail. He's in a Beech 18. It's a civilian aircraft with no armor, no guns, no defensive measures. He doesn't have a parachute, and to make things worse, he's got extra fuel tanks in the back. They're not self-sealing. He's basically flying a giant incendiary bomb, and he has no way of defending himself.
It's not the plane. It's the pilot.
The Zeros start shooting at him. Pappy does the only thing he can do. He dives down, gets like feet off the ground. He's bobbing and weaving in between trees, hills, flying nape of the earth. Anything he can do to try to lose these Zeros, he's doing it. They chase him for like 10 minutes. They wind up shooting out his right engine and hitting his fuselage. He winds up losing the Zeros, but now he smells fuel. They punctured his fuel tanks. They're not self-sealing. He still has a huge problem on his hand. He's not going to be able to make it far on one engine. So he goes to the nearest Allied airfield. He approaches. He radios in. No response. Radios in. No response. He has to land this plane like right now. As he makes his approach, Allied forces start lighting him up with anti-aircraft fire, hitting his plane even more.
Stop blowing holes in my ship!
Pappy peels off, somehow manages to limp the plane all the way back to Nichols Field, a mile from his house, and as he approaches Nichols Field at night, he radios in. Still, no response from anybody. The radios have been knocked out in the previous air raids, and he's approaching, goes to hit the landing gear. The hydraulic system for his landing gear's out too. He now has to belly land a plane with leaking fuel tanks in the middle of the night. Somehow he does it. He crash lands this plane, ends up ripping the wing off. The plane's absolutely totaled, but he survives. He's got one plane left, and then he just kind of like goes home. He's later told by the mechanics that his plane had 130 bullet holes in it. But, you know, whatever. He smokes a cigarette and heads home. Gets home late at night. Paulie asks him how his day was, and he's just like, it was good. He didn't want to worry her. Shortly after this, the Japanese start landing ground troops absolutely everywhere. And Pappy's like, I need to figure out where to get my family. I have to get them out of Manila, like right now. And for the same reason, this is also the same time that the Army chain of command is like, we need to get out all of our super important VIPs, like right now. Pappy, being one of the best pilots they have, gets selected to fly out General Barradin, the head of the U.S. Army Air Force at this point in time. And he basically tells him, no, sorry, I got to get my family out. I've got more important shit to do. Figure out how to get your own VIP to Australia. At which point he is ordered to take General Barradin, and he is assured by the chain of command that Manila is going to be defended. He will have time to make it back and then save his family. working. So he does it. He follows orders. He flies General Barrington and his staff to Australia, and by the time he lands in Australia, he finds out that MacArthur has declared Manila an open city, and it has been turned over to the Japanese with zero resistance. His family, for all intents and purposes, as far as he knows, is either dead or put in a Japanese internment camp.
Son of a bitch.
Pappy flies off the fucking handle. He is pissed. He followed orders. He doesn't give a fuck about orders. He doesn't care about rank. He doesn't care about the military. He doesn't care about anything other than saving his family. And he's gonna do whatever it takes to get it done. And now they're trying to tell him he's not allowed to go back to the Philippines because it's too dangerous. Guess who doesn't give a single fuck about orders ever again? Pappy Gunn. So he goes out and somehow or another he acquires $3,500 and then finds somebody that's already headed back to Manila on orders, bribes them with $3,500, gives them his wedding ring and a note that says, get this to Polly at this address. And that letter tells her, have the kids ready, pack one bag apiece, be on this road at this time. I'll be there to pick you up. 10 days later, Pappy steals a military plane, flies it into the Philippines with no escort in enemy territory, completely unguarded at night, lands it on the civilian road that he told his wife to meet him at. And he sits there and he waits. And he waits, and he waits, and his family doesn't show up. So he does the only thing he can do. He heads back to Australia. Pappy gets back to Australia, starts trying to figure out what to do, starts going to different military units. Pappy, he just got commissioned as a captain. He wasn't attached to a unit formally. They were just like, here's your commission, go do whatever the fuck we tell you, and that's what was going on. He doesn't really know who his chain of command even is, so he just starts wandering around military bases from unit to unit, trying to figure out how he can help. He starts volunteering for any dangerous mission, recon, supply runs, anything that will get him back or close to Manila so he can ideally also rescue his family. During this time, he never gets the opportunity to rescue his family. Allegedly, according to legend, he crashes 3 to 5 planes, survives every single one of them, and just somehow keeps making his way back to Australia. And every time he makes it back to Australia, nothing's improving. Everybody is just kind of like scrambling around. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. A lot of people just aren't doing anything because nobody knows what to do. And then Pappy eventually finds Colonel Davies of the 27th Bomb Group, who has the same attitude and demeanor as Pappy of, we need to get shit done. And the problem Colonel Davies is having is he can't get any supplies from the US government because the Quartermaster Corps isn't in warfighting mode. They're in like do everything by the book mode. So they're just hoarding all these supplies in warehouses and refusing to give them out to get into the action, and they're going to ship them off to Bataan to help the Allied forces fight the Japanese. Only problem, for the most part, these are all rookie pilots. Navigating over open ocean is extremely difficult, and they don't know the area, so Pappy's like, fine, I'll do it myself. I will guide the P-40s there in my Beech 18. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to slip off and rescue my family. So they take off, Pappy's in his Beech 18, he's guiding the P-40s. They're going to have to make multiple stops to refuel on different islands along the way, and they make it to their second refueling point, and one of the P-40s blows a tire. So naturally, they're going to leave that P-40 there, wait for it to get repaired, and the rest of the P-40s are going to continue to Bataan. No, I'm just kidding. The commander is like, no, that would be too risky because then there would be one P-40 traveling by itself and he would be an easy target for the Japanese. So instead of having the P-40, the warplane designed for aerial combat, travel by itself, we're going to have Pappy in his Beech 18 civilian plane with no armor, full of fuel tanks that aren't self-sealing and no guns. We're going to have him fly back by himself, pick up a tire, bring it back, and then he can fix it because he's the mechanic.
Seems fair.
Pappy's like, fine, whatever, flies back, gets the tire, flies back to this island. When he gets back to the island, fixes the tire, and then he's informed that the Japanese have just captured the Dutch East Indies, which was their next refueling point, so now they can't make it to Bataan. At this point, the P-40s get diverted, they get sent out to Java. Pappy takes them to Java, then he heads back to Australia, and at this point, he now realizes the only plane with enough fuel to be able to make it from Australia straight to the Philippines is going to be a massive bomber, and he doesn't have that plane, so he's going to have to acquire one if he wants to save his family. So Pappy gets back to Australia, goes out to the junkyard. The junkyard is just being salvaged to death. Like, there's no supplies, everybody's cannibalizing everything to keep planes in the air, but he finds this B-17 that's just completely destroyed. It's all shot up, it's ruined, it's been dug through for any valuable parts, but they're not Pappy. Pappy finds this B-17. It says Miss EMF painted on the side, which he later found out meant every morning fixing, because before it was decommissioned, they had to work on it every single day to keep this plane in the air. Pappy goes to work around the clock working on Miss EMF, stealing all the parts that he needs, and he gets this B-17 to the point that it can fly. And unlike his civilian Beech-18, this can carry guns and ammunition, which is something Pappy definitely wants. So that's exactly what he gets. We don't really know how for sure, but allegedly the word on the street is by this point in time, Pappy had started carrying 2 Colt 45s on a chest rig on either side of his body, and he convinced a supply sergeant and some aviation mechanics to load up his plane at gunpoint. He then proceeds to go on multiple combat bombing missions by himself under no orders. Then the next opportunity to get to the Philippines arises. Basically, what's going on at this point is Allied forces on the ground are just getting ravaged by malaria. They need to get malaria medication smuggled into the Philippines to keep their troops up and fighting. So they're going to get all this malaria medication, and they need a crazy pilot to fly all the way there, and Pappy volunteers, thinking it's going to be another opportunity to get close to my family. Maybe I'll be able to rescue them. So he loads up his plane with quinine, malaria medication, and flies straight towards Bataan. On the way there, about 12 hours in, Japanese Zeros spot him. They come in, they shoot him down. Pappy's somehow able to limp this thing to the nearest island, where he has to crash land into a coconut grove. Pappy then links up with friendlies on the island, finds out that his family is still alive, and then figures out a way to make his way back to Australia. A submarine comes and picks him up. When he gets back to Australia, he checks out the flight line, and there is 14 brand new B-25 medium bombers fresh off the factory line sitting there. Pappy is immediately pumped, like, okay, we're getting new planes, we're gonna be able to fight this war, we're gonna win, I'm gonna get my family back. Pappy starts talking with the NCO that's on the flight line, taking care of these planes, and he informs him, oh, actually, these planes aren't for America, even though they're made by America and American factories. These planes actually belong to the Dutch Air Force, which is in shambles, and they don't even have enough men to man these planes. Immediately, Pappy's pissed. Like, what the fuck what are you talking about? We've got American pilots sitting around that don't have planes that are ready to go get into combat, and these are just going to sit here empty. And the NCO's just like, yep, pretty much that's about it.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So Pappy immediately goes to Colonel Davies, tells Colonel Davies what's going on. Colonel Davies kicks it up to his chain of command, and the general above Colonel Davies writes an order for the American military to seize those B-25s. Have the Dutch agreed to this? No. Does Pappy care? Also no. So Pappy and a bunch of his boys roll up to this Dutch airfield, and they're like, hey, we're supposed to take these planes. Here's our written orders. And the Dutch are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody told us anything about this. No, you're not taking our planes. We need to look into this. We need to run this up our chain of command. Pretty understandable, normal chain of procedure that they're asking here. And Pappy's like, oh, sure, go ahead. You mind if we go look at the planes while you guys figure that out? And they're like, yeah, go ahead, go look at them, whatever. They go in the office to check this with the chain of command. Pappy and his guys hop in the planes and just fucking take off. By the time they land back at their airfield, the Dutch have already radioed up to the American chain of command. There's some major from a different chain of command that's there barking orders saying, we need to take the planes back right now. You stole these planes, blah, 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 blah. Colonel Davies comes around the corner and is like, what orders do you have to make us send these planes back? And he's like, I have verbal orders from so-and-so. And he's like, cool, well, I have written orders right here, and written orders trump verbal orders, so fuck off, the planes are ours. He does. Pappy has just strategically acquired an entire fleet of B-25 medium bombers. But there's a problem. They don't have bomb sights, so they're kind of worthless. The Dutch probably took the bomb sights out and then locked them up in the weapons cabinet, which would be standard procedure at this point in time. So, yeah, they're basically just giant transport planes without the ability to accurately bomb, so they're worthless. At which point, Pappy says, I'll be right back. Pappy takes off, goes back to the Dutch airfield with his Colt 45s, and robs the supply sergeant and takes the bomb sights and brings them back. Pappy doesn't give a fuck. What are they going to do? Court-martial him? They already got his family put in an internment camp. He doesn't care. So now Pappy starts learning everything about bombers, right? He was a Navy pilot. He's only done dive bombing. These things can't dive bomb. They're big conventional bombers dropping bombs from, 10,000 feet up in the air, and he very quickly realizes that that's not effective against ships at all. He's gonna have to figure out a way to successfully use a B-25 effectively against enemy ships. And he decides you're just gonna have to fly super low and go right above them and drop the bombs. Just literally park it right on their foreheads. That's the only way this is gonna work. The problem is you're gonna get absolutely lit up by enemy anti-aircraft fire, so now he has to figure out a way to suppress the enemy anti-aircraft fire. So he goes out and he acquires an A-20 Havoc, a light bomber, and then he also goes out and acquires 6 50 caliber machine guns and figures out a way to mount them in the nose, and the A-20 Havoc is gonna go in and strafe the entire deck, taking out the anti-aircraft guns, or at the very least suppressing them so they can't shoot at the B-25s, and the B-25s are gonna fly right over the top and bomb the fuck out of the ship and sink it. That's the plan. Okay, and just so we're on the same page, I'm like, oh, he throws some 50 cals in a plane. You don't just throw 6 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of a plane, okay? You're looking at like thousands of pounds of extra weight between the guns and the ammunition in the nose of the plane, throwing off the weight, the center of gravity, the aerodynamics, absolutely everything. Regardless, Pappy works around the clock and figures out how to make it work. And then it dawns on him, well, what if I do the same thing to the B-25s? Then they can light up the enemy anti-aircraft fire on their way in as well. It's even more suppressing fire.
That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
So Pappy goes to work again. This time it's way harder for whatever reason. The aerodynamics, the center of gravity just aren't working out. He's trying to mount 8 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of a B-25. He is working on it like 20 hours a day, nonstop. Just a man that's absolutely possessed. While he's doing this, he winds up breaking his pinky. He smashes it somehow, whatever. He breaks his pinky. It's all mangled. It's hanging sideways. Goes to the doctor, gets it splinted. The splint keeps coming off. He keeps bumping it on shit. It fucking hurts. Finally, he's had enough. It's taken too much of his time off from his project so he can save his family, and it's just a pinky. He doesn't fucking need it. So he goes to his medic and he's like, hey, I need you to cut this off. And the medic is like, dude, I'm just a medic. I'm not a surgeon. Let's take you to the hospital. We'll see what they can do. He's not even trying to question this guy. He knows Pappy at this point. He knows he's serious. So he goes to the hospital with Pappy. They go in, they talk to the surgeon. The surgeon's like, oh, we can splint it. We can do a cast. I can do some surgery, blah, 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 blah. And Pappy's like, no, just cut the fucker off. I'm busy. I don't have time for this shit. And the surgeon is like, I can't ethically do that. At which point Pappy pulls out one of his 45s, points it at his finger and says, you're going to cut it off or you're going to clean it off the wall. What do you want to do? The doctor cut it off. And Pappy goes right back to work with 9 fingers. By this point, he's got a functioning prototype. He's going up on combat missions in a plane that's not tested, managing to keep this thing in the air while it's so heavy in the nose. And the first time he fires it in combat, it almost knocks the plane out of the sky and rips the guns right out of the nose cone, ripping the entire thing off. Luckily, he manages to keep it in the air, brings it back. It's okay, I got the useful data. He reinforces the nose cone. He figures out how to mount the 50 calibers directly to the airframe. He's making this work. Also, around this time, he acquires a pet lizard that he names Sam. Apparently, it's just some big-ass lizard that sits on his shoulder all day and hisses at people when they walk by while he's working. So everybody's just kind of like the old crazy dude Pappy has just, he's lost his fucking mind. He continues working on the plane. He continues going up on these test runs. Sam the lizard is flying shotgun on his shoulder the entire time. Eventually, he thinks he's got it. He thinks he's perfected the design. He has made this plane work somehow, and he wants to go test it. The problem is, there's no combat missions for the day, so he takes off anyways, and he's just flying around looking for something to shoot. He flies over a farm, and he sees a cow. Pappy and Sam, it's probably Sam's idea, but Pappy ends up strafing this cow, and allegedly, the 50 caliber machine gun fire from 850 cals picked the cow so high up into the air that he actually flew underneath it.
We even had a guy that picked up an oxen with his 50s coming off a target and flew under the oxen.
He then lands his plane, goes, apologizes, pays the farmer $16, loads what's left of the cow into his plane, brings it back to the base, and that's what everybody had for dinner that night.
Love that barbecue.
Regardless, the plane is, it's almost done. It's almost there. He's just got a few more things to refine, and while he's working on that, he hears that the United States Army Air Force has this new general in charge of everybody, and he's like, I don't care. It's one more bureaucrat to fucking annoy me that I'm not going to listen to. Just keep him away from me. So General Kenny, Dick Bong's boss, General Kenny, like the famous General Kenny, he winds up showing up to theater. He's, getting ushered around, meeting all the leadership, and he keeps hearing story after story about this crazy 40-year-old dude that's trying to get his family back, that's going on every crazy mission they've got, and he's just working like a madman on building some Franken plane in the hangar, and he's like, I gotta fucking meet this guy. So he goes out to the aircraft hangar where he's working, and they meet. And at first, Pappy's like, fucking great, another bureaucrat's gonna tell me I can't do what I'm doing, can't save my family, whatever, I don't care. But they meet, they start talking, and he very quickly realizes that General Kenny is not only a capable airplane mechanic that knows what the fuck he's talking about, he also wants to win this war and isn't afraid to do unconventional shit.
I thought I was the only one.
Because General Kenny has a pretty big history of wanting to do unconventional shit as well. He actually helped pioneer, design, and convince the American government to build 23-pound fragmentation bombs back in the day, and he has 3,000 of them laying around, so he goes to Pappy and is like, sounds like it could be pretty useful to drop those on top mid-strafing run. They got little parachutes, they float down, 23-pound hand grenades just explode all over the enemy after you strafe the shit out of them, and Pappy's like, fuck yeah, I can make that work. He then shows General Kenny the A-20 Havoc that's already up and functioning, and he's like, I could probably mount him in here and we could drop him after we do the strafing run. And he's like, that would be perfect. Also, if you can make me more of these, there's a bunch of combat going on in Papua New Guinea on this place called the Kokoda Trail that we're having all this ground combat. I could send the A-20s in to strafe enemy ground troops on the trail. It would be absolutely devastating. So that's exactly what they do. Pappy builds 15 more of the A-20 Havocs. They go into combat at the Kokoda Trail and play a decisive factor in the victory. And Pappy Gunn's not about to let all the other pilots have all the fun in the planes that he just built, so he goes to the Kokoda Trail and conducts 5 ground strafing missions. On his 5th mission, he's up in the air with Sam, strafing enemy soldiers, and then he gets hit with shrapnel that impales his arm to his chair and ends up killing Sam, and Sam dies in his hand.
Killed his dog.
Hey, Pappy hasn't gave a fuck in a long time. Now he's running at an active deficit. They've killed the only thing that's brought him any joy in the past, year and a half. But the silver lining is, General Kenny, seeing how effective the A-20 Havocs were at ground combat, makes Pappy Gunn his head of special projects. Pappy no longer has to steal shit. He no longer has to acquire stuff and rob people. He has a blank check with the DoD budget. He's gonna get whatever the fuck he wants, whenever he wants it. And with that, he decides the B-25s might be even more effective at sinking enemy ships if they could skip bomb. Skip bombing was a technique that was originally pioneered by the British, where the plan was, fly really fast right above the water, drop your bomb going so fast that the bomb skips across the water like a rock on a pond and then clashes into the side of the enemy ship and explodes. Pappy goes in, gets his skip bombs, modifies the fuses so they have an 11-second delay, giving them enough time that they're going to be able to punch into the enemy ship's hull and then explode on the inside. He then retrofits the B-25 to function with this new skip bombing technique, and then he goes out and tests it on some abandoned ship they have off the coast, and it's effective, at which point he goes to work with a bunch of other mechanics, modifying all 14 of the B-25s, and then he gets more B-25s coming in, and he modifies all those too. So now the B-25 has been changed from a medium bomber into what amounts to an A-10 Warthog that can skip bombs at you. Late February 1943, things in the Pacific Theater are, the tide is starting to turn. On the ground, both sides are sucking. It's turning into a war of attrition. Both sides, the American and the Japanese, are struggling to get their guys troops, supplies, and reinforcements. Military intelligence has found out that the Japanese are launching a major reinforcement operation for New Guinea, where they're sending in an entire division of Japanese Marines. They're going to be coming in on 8 troop transports, being escorted by 8 Japanese destroyers. If they can somehow prevent these troops from making it to New Guinea and destroy their ships, America's going to be able to take it over that much faster. If so facto, the war ends sooner. Pappy gets his family back. Pappy is all about it. It's time to throw in the B-25s. All right, so here's the plan. Obviously, these ships are going to have fighter cover from a bunch of Japanese Zeros. We're going to send in America's new badass fighter plane, the P-38 Lightning. They're going to go clear out the Zeros. Then we're going to send in a bunch of B-17 conventional bombers. They're going to drop their bombs from like 10,000 feet up in the air. It's going to be horrifically ineffective. But we know that. It's part of the plan. We're not dropping those bombs because we think they're going to sink the ships. We're dropping those bombs because it's going to force the ships to break out of their formation and create chaos. After their formation's shattered, then we send in the A-20s to strafe the decks and suppress the enemy anti-aircraft, and then we send in the B-25s to suppress them even more and skip bombs right into the sides of their hulls. It's a good plan. Pappy's excited. General Kenny steps in and is like, no, you're too valuable to lose in combat. You're not allowed to go. So naturally, Pappy goes anyways. March 3rd, 1943, Battle of the Bismarck Sea. Everything goes according to plan. The P-38s go in, they take out the Zeros. The B-17s go in, they drop their bombs, they scatter the enemy formation, creating chaos. The A-20s go in, and this is where things take an unprecedented turn. You see, the Japanese didn't know that the A-20 strafer was a thing yet. So when they saw a bunch of light bombers approaching at low altitude, they naturally assumed that they were torpedo bombers, because obviously that's the only thing that could be. Now, the doctrine for dealing with torpedo bombers, if you're a ship, is to turn towards the torpedo bombers, so you reduce how big of a target you are, because if you let them be on your full broadside, they can hit the whole side of their ship. But if you turn to face them, they'd have to hit you dead on right on the front for a torpedo to be effective. So all their ships start turning towards the A-20 Havocs, assuming they're torpedo bombers. And what that does is it lines it up so that the A-20 Havocs, instead of strafing widthwise across the deck, are able to strafe the entire deck from bow to stern.
I love when a plan comes together.
And those decks are covered in enemy infantry soldiers, by the way, or at least they were.
I go, did you ever kill anybody? And he goes, I threw grenades into bunkers. I go, were there people in there? He goes, there were. Yeah.
Then the B-25s come in, strafing and skipping bombs right into the sides of the hull. By the time the smoke settles, they've sunk all 8 enemy troop transports and 4 of the destroyers. And the death toll for the Japanese men on board range anywhere from 3 to 10,000. And that's it. Pappy is pretty much the driving factor and the mastermind behind the liberation of New Guinea. After seeing this, General Kenny radios back to America and is like, hey, we need to just start making the B-25s like this from the factory. He sends like the designs, the rough sketches, the gist, the idea, and the engineers back home in America are like, that's not possible. You can't put that much weight in the front of a B-25. This will never work. It's against the laws of physics. So Kenny is like, fuck this. Pappy, pack your shit up. You're going to America. You're going to show them how to build a fucking plane. Pappy goes back to America, goes into this boardroom of all these engineers, all these, smart people that know what the fuck is going on, and they explain to him why this would never work, why it's physically impossible, blah, 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 blah. And Pappy's like, it works. I've done it. We did it with like 25 B-25s already, and we sank a bunch of Japanese ships. By the way, here's a bunch of pictures because I rigged cameras up to all my B-55s too, so I could yell World Star while I fucking did it. Pappy then goes and shows the engineers how he did it, and this becomes an official manufactured model of the B-25, the B-25 strafer. After that, Pappy heads back to Australia, gotta save his family, gets back to Australia, starts working as a head of special projects for General Kenny again, and then he finds out that the engineers back in America one-upped him. They didn't figure out how to mount 8 50 calibers in the B-25. They figured out how to mount 12 50 calibers in the B-25, and that's gonna be the new standard B-25 strafer. Okay, they've one-upped him, sure. Is there multiple of them? Yes. Do they have engineering degrees? Yes. Do they have unlimited resources and didn't cobble it together in an aircraft hangar in the middle of a war zone? Yes. But also, Pappy Gun's not gonna let that shit stand. He's got to one-up him back. Pappy goes back to work in his lab. You know what's cooler than a B-25 with 12 50 caliber machine guns? A B-25 with 4 50 caliber machine guns and a 75 millimeter fucking tank cannon out of a Sherman tank. Yes, he actually does this. Not only does it work, he actually goes out in the testing and sinks multiple enemy ships with a fucking tank cannon he mounted inside of a plane, and then it also becomes an official B-25 design, the B-25G. By August of 1943, Pappy's designs are getting mass-produced in America and sent into combat, and they are playing a pivotal role in ground warfare. They are part of the reason that we were able to win the WEWAC campaign in 1943. But this still doesn't solve the problem. Like, okay, cool, America's winning the war now, but also I still need to get my wife and kids back, so he starts plotting on how he's going to get back to the Philippines and rescue his family. By 1944, intelligence says that the Japanese are storing hundreds of Japanese planes in Manila on Dewey Boulevard, and Pappy's like, they're in a straight line. They're on a fucking street. Let me load up the B-25 with extra fuel tanks. I will fly straight there. I've got enough for a one-way trip. I will strafe all of these planes, take out hundreds of Japanese planes. I'll either land or I'll crash land, and then I'll figure out how to make it back to Australia. In reality, in the back of his head, he's like, then I'm going to go rescue my fucking family. But General Kenny steps in and is like, no, absolutely not. You're too valuable. By September of 1944, America's gearing up to re-invade and retake the Philippines, and Pappy's like, let me go in, I'll organize guerrillas, I'll start fighting right now. And General Kenny, again, is like, dude, no, you are more valuable to me than a Japanese general. We're not doing this. You're staying here. Then, as the plans for the invasion of the Philippines get drawn up, they come to the realization that the American aircraft carriers aren't going to be enough to be able to maintain or even compete for air superiority, and they're going to need a landing strip somewhere in the area, preferably in Leyte. Problem, there isn't one. So they're literally, if this plan's going to work, they're going to have to send in a forward engineer party that's going to have to take the beach, get rid of all the Japanese there, and then build a fucking airstrip in a matter of like a day or two if they're going to have any chance of retaking the Philippines.
Norm, we need your help to win this battle. Let's go.
It's something that's just, it's not possible. But luckily, they have one guy that can do the impossible, Pappy Gunn. Pappy then hand selects his entire raiding and construction crew, makes an amphibious landing in Leyte, takes the beach, and builds a fucking airstrip big enough for every American heavy bomber to land on in the matter of 3 days. And on the very first of those 3 days, it becomes very apparent that some heavy equipment would be pretty fucking handy, like, I don't know, a bulldozer. So Pappy takes off on his own behind enemy lines and steals a Japanese bulldozer and then uses that to build the airstrip. After they get this airstrip up and running, the Japanese bomb the airstrip, and Pappy dives underneath a Jeep and he gets hit with a white phosphorus bomb, and he wakes up in the hospital after being in a coma.
Okay, this is important.
When he finally wakes up out of his coma, he has excruciating pain that seems to be agitated by like noise, any music, loudspeakers, anything, just makes this searing pain in his arm where he was hit with this white phosphorus go crazy, so much so that it makes him pass out. The doctors evaluate him, they tell him it's all in his head, they tell him he's making it up, he's malingering, he's trying to get out of combat. They obviously don't know who the fuck Pappy Gunn is, he's just another wounded soldier to them. And this goes on for weeks, just excruciating pain, so much so he's blacking out constantly, he feels horrible, he's like on his deathbed, it's actively killing him. And then General Kenny finds out what's going on, chews out all the doctors like, this dude's a fucking hero, he's not malingering, trust me, I have to do everything I can to keep him out of combat. Whatever's going on, he's not fucking faking it. Check him out again. They do it more and more. They check him. They finally do an exploratory surgery and find out that a piece of the white phosphorus, which is extremely fucking hot, had entered his body and seared one of the nerves in his arm, and it was still open and red and pissed off, and that's why he was getting agitated by sound. So they go in there and cut everything out, patch him up, and now he's just in the hospital recovering. And while he's in the hospital recovering, he gets more visitors.
Yeah.
His wife and kids. While he was in the hospital, America liberated the Philippines, including Santo Tomas internment camp, where his family was being held, and they managed to survive. After his family had been liberated, it took them a couple of days to make their way to the hospital where Pappy was being held, and the entire time, every different person they got handed off to was like, holy shit, you're Pappy Gunn's wife and kids. All they could hear about was all the legendary exploits and what their dad did to save them, and how he's the reason that they're getting saved this early in the war. And then Pappy Gunn got to hear all the stories of what they had been up to for the past couple of years. And in this internment camp, they were starved, they were beaten, they were treated horribly. His wife came down with appendicitis, and they didn't have general anesthesia, and she had to have her appendix removed while she was awake. And as the stories went on, as horrific as they were, there was a silver lining, and it was the fact that his kids took after him. His daughter had a cyst on her spine and had to have surgery, and she was in a full body cast for months. She used that body cast to hide and smuggle intel in and out of the camp to guerrilla fighting groups. Quite literally, some of the intel that was probably used by Pappy to help save them was delivered by them. His sons would break out of the camp at night and go steal food and smuggle it back in to feed their sisters and their mom, themselves, and other people. The entire time, Pappy Gunn was fighting his ass off to get back to his family. They were doing the exact same thing to get back to him, and that is the best ending to one of the best stories I think I've ever told. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch, maybe drink some Echelon. All that's available over at fatelectrician.com. Quack bang.
Quack bang. Okay, so that's it for the show today. There's some silly things going out here.
Proof that your pets are running on the exact same operating system.
Hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. to do it again. And things will be different tomorrow.
That tree is holding on for dear life while the ultimate itch gets scratched.
There we go. All right. So hopefully you have a good afternoon. Get some things done. It's Sunday. Get ready for Monday coming up tomorrow. We'll be back at 2 p.m. I'm going to move some dirt today, I believe. And I also am going to fix my drain, which is really cool. Get a new drain thing at the bottom on both sinks now. Since I did the other one, I'm like, why not do the other one? So, but anyway, thanks for watching. Remember, if you get a chance to say the Lord's Prayer for somebody, it could be somebody working on their drain and they're having a difficult time. Could be anybody, but could be that you get frustrated about something. Well, say the Lord's Prayer for a minute, and maybe if you want, get a hold of me. I'll send you one of the buttons with the Lord's Prayer on it. That way you can wear it on your chest and remind yourself constantly. But some people don't need it. They're just too smart, right? So y'all have a good Sunday. Say a prayer for somebody, maybe yourself. maybe somebody post on Facebook that you don't even know, or maybe even me. All right. Now I have to do my fun thing where I freeze spray, right?